Hello, welcome in. Hi. Okay, so we are back, thank goodness, because last stream I completely, my power completely went out. The thunder was real, and it just stopped me in the middle of my stream. And as I was actually about to go restart, the power went out again. So I figured that was a good sign to me to stop reading for the night. Unfortunately, it means that we are just a little bit behind on our reading for Scythe for the summer reading stream, but that's okay because we still have a little bit of time to get through it before school starts, and we don't have that much left. We're on part 3, more than halfway through the book, and it's getting really intense, and it's just going to keep getting more intense. I do feel like I remember a point in part 4 where it did feel like the story was starting to lag a little bit, but I'm hoping it'll be pretty quick, because a lot does happen and a lot is revealed about characters. Conflict, reaches a climax in these parts, so it is gonna be very exciting to get through this next part. If we've got enough time today, I'd like to get through this next part of part 3, this last part of part 3. And then if we have time, I'd like to get started on part 4 if possible. Yes, on board. Welcome in. I'm glad you chose Scythe as well. It's a really, really good book. The ending is really good. No spoilers yet because we are still on part 3. And I just want to make sure that anybody who hasn't read it or is reading along with us will kind of enjoy the surprise. Okay, so we're going to pick up. I want to get just immediately reading into it. I've got some nice background music going while we read. But yeah, I want to just get right back into where we left off because I got cut off mid-sentence last stream. So, okay, so I put up where we are so far in the book, the story so far, and some vocabulary words that we've picked out. And I have already prepared the next slide for part 4, so that's why I'd like to get into it today if we can. Okay, so just to remind everybody where we were yesterday, Rowan is with Scythe Goddard at this point. He's training with him and has already witnessed his gleaning. Scythe Goddard, his method of gleaning when he goes out and he does mass gleanings, he kills lots of people at once, and he's already kind of experienced that. This is the post-mortem after he's seen the gleaning and experienced it and how kind of hard it's been. And he's talking with Esme. Esme is a young girl that Scythe Goddard has in his entourage, and no one really knows why she's there. She's this 10-year-old girl, almost 10-year-old girl, and she doesn't even know why she's there. Rowan is trying to see if he can get any secrets out from her in this moment because she seems to really like him. She thinks that he's different than the other Scythes, and she wants to interact with him. She's a little girl. She probably finds this older boy, has probably a little bit of crush on him, and Rowan he's not into it. Scythe Goddard told him to be nice to her, and he almost doesn't want to, just because he doesn't want to follow Scythe Goddard's rules. So he has just asked her, has he ever hinted as to why you matter so much to him? He's asked Esme, why does she think he cares so much about her? Esme didn't answer. Instead, she laid down her cards, 9s over 3s. Rummy, she said. Loser shuffles. Rowan gathered the cards. Scythe Goddard must have had a good reason to let you live and to grant you immunity. Aren't you at all curious? Esme shrugged and stayed tight-lipped. It was only after Rowan dealt the next hand that she said, actually, Scythe Goddard didn't grant me immunity. He can glean me anytime he wants, but he doesn't. Then she smiled. That makes me even more special, don't you think? Okay, that's a thinking moment. So, I wonder why he hasn't granted her immunity, because he can absolutely offer it to her, but he hasn't. It's interesting. It's almost like he's saving her for something. like she has a reason to be there. He might use her as collateral or as I don't know, as a seems to me like he's going to be using her as some kind of pawn, especially since he hasn't granted her immunity. So she has the possibility to be gleaned by any Scythe there. So that's interesting. And Rowan knows that now, so maybe he's going to catch in on a couple of secrets. They played 4 games. 1, Esme won. Fair and square. 2, Rowan let her win. And 1, Rowan won, so it wouldn't be as obvious that he had thrown the others. Make sure the music isn't too loud here. By the time they were done, dinner had broken up and the others were going about their particular evening routines. Rowan avoided everyone and tried to go straight to his room, but on his way, he heard something that gave him pause. There was faint sobbing coming from Scythe Volta's room. He listened at the door to make sure it wasn't his imagination, then turned the knob. The door wasn't locked. He pushed it open slightly and peered inside. Scythe Volta was there, sitting on his bed, head in his hands. His body heaved with sobs that he tried to stifle but could not. It was a few moments before he looked up and saw Rowan. Volta's sorrow instantly turned to fury. "Who the hell said you could come in here? Get out!" He grabbed the nearest object, a glass paperweight, and hurled it at Rowan, just as Esme had suggested he might. He would have left a pretty nasty gash on Rowan's head had it connected, but Rowan ducked the thing, and the thing hit the door, leaving a substantial dent in the wood instead of in Rowan's skull. Rowan could have retreated. That probably would have been the most judicious course of action, but leaving well enough alone was not Rowan's strong point. He was notoriously skilled at sticking his nose where it didn't belong. He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him, preparing to dodge the next blunt object hurled his way. "You have to be quieter if you don't want anyone to hear you," he told Volta. "If you tell anyone, I will make your life a living hell." Rowan laughed at that because it implied his life wasn't already that. "You think that's funny? I'll show you funny." "Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I wasn't laughing at you. It's what you think, if that's what you think." Since Volta was no longer throwing things and wasn't chasing him out, Rowan grabbed a chair and sat down, far enough away to give Volta some space. "Today was hard," Rowan said. "I don't blame you." "What do you know about it?" snapped Volta. "I know you're not like the others." That's the title of this chapter, by the way, just in case you didn't remember from yesterday. "I know you're not like the others," said Rowan. "Not really." Volta looked up at him, his eyes red from tears that he didn't try to hide anymore. "There's something wrong with me, you mean?" Volta looked down again, clenching his fists, but Rowan didn't move because he didn't expect to get a beating. He suspected that Volta would use his own fists against himself if he could. Okay, so this is interesting. I think I talked about this a little bit the last time, but I said that Rowan and Volta would kind of start to build a relationship, and you've seen Volta's compassion, just little tiny snippets of it throughout this part since Rowan has been training with them. And now Volta's crying on the day that the other sides have gleaned and done all of this, just completely massacred an entire building of scientists. And they're like just chowing down, feasting, enjoying. They're having a huge party, and they have no remorse whatsoever for what they've done. And Volta is in his room crying, and Rowan knows that he's not like the other side. He says, "You're different. You're acting different just from the fact that you are showing this emotion after this horrible act." And Volta's first response is, "You mean there's something wrong with me?" So this is just a clear indication that Volta has been brainwashed by Scythe Goddard, right? Your emotions are your weakness. Your compassion is the thing that's going to get you killed. And, Volta has that. He can't get rid of that. And he's tried to hide it. He's tried to push it down, but it doesn't seem like he's doing his best at that. "Scythe Goddard is the future," Volta said. "I don't want to be a part of the past. Don't you understand? But you hated today, didn't you? Even more than me, because you weren't just watching, you were a part of it. And you'll be a part of it soon too." Maybe not, said Rowan. Oh, you will be. The moment you get your ring and kill that pretty little girlfriend of yours, you'll know there's no turning back for you either. Rowan swallowed, trying to fight down what little bit of dinner he had eaten. Citra's face bloomed in his mind, but he pushed the image away. He couldn't let himself think about her now. Rowan knew he was out on a limb with Volta. The only thing to do was shimmy to its precarious end. You only pretend to like gleaning, he told Volta. But you hate it more than you've ever hated anything. Your mentor was Scythe Neru, right? He's very old school, which means he chose you for your conscience. You don't want to take life, and you definitely don't want to take dozens upon dozens at a time. Volta leaped up, moving faster than seemed possible. He lifted Rowan up and pushed him against the wall with a bruising slam that made Rowan sorely miss his pain-killing nanites. You'll never repeat that to anyone. Do you hear me? I've come too far to have my position jeopardized. I won't be blackmailed by some snot-nosed apprentice. Is that what you think I'm doing? Blackmailing you? Don't toy with me, growled Volta. I know why you're here. Rowan was genuinely disappointed. I thought you knew me. A moment more, and Volta loosened his grip. Nobody knows anyone, do they? He says. I promise I won't tell anyone, and I don't want anything from you. Volta finally backed off. I'm sorry. After you've been surrounded by so much scheming, you start to think that's how everyone plays. He sat back down on the bed. I believe you, because I know you're better than that. In fact, I knew from the moment Goddard brought you in, he sees you as a challenge. Because if he can turn one of Faraday's apprentices on his way of thinking, it proves he can turn anyone. So there you have it, right? Scythe Goddard chose Rowan not because he wanted to take an apprentice, but because he was Scythe Faraday's apprentice before. And Scythe Faraday is like the pinnacle of old school, traditional compassion, respect for the job, respect for death. And he's instilled some of that in Rowan. I think Rowan has kind of definitely internalized some of Faraday's teachings. But Goddard thinks, okay, if I can turn this kid, I can turn anybody. Anybody can come to my side if I can get one of Scythe Faraday's former apprentices to come over to my side, right? And it's interesting that Volta reacts the way he does at first, right? He even says, when you're surrounded by so much scheming, you think everybody plays that way. And he does. He thinks Rowan is trying to blackmail him or means some harm when he's telling him the truth about himself, right? That he's crying that he hates mass gleaning. He hates this whole situation with Goddard. So it's really interesting that Volta kind of reacts at first to thinking that Rowan's doing some kind of, manipulation, because that's what he's used to, right? That's normal for him, for people to try and manipulate him and influence him because he's hung around with Goddard so much. But deep down, Volta knows. Volta sees Rowan as the same as him, almost, right? They both have this compassion for people and for the subjects that they glean, and they have a respect for death that I don't think Goddard or his other two Scythe friends do. Then it occurred to Rowan that Volta wasn't all that much older than him. He had always feigned a confidence that made him seem older, but now his vulnerability revealed the truth. He was 20 at most, which meant he'd only been a Scythe for a couple of years. Rowan didn't know the path that led him from an old guard Scythe to Goddard, but he could imagine. Just feel like music's a little loud. I don't want it to be too loud. He could see how a junior Scythe might gravitate toward Goddard's flash and charisma. After all, Goddard promised his disciples anything a human heart could desire in exchange for the complete abdication of one's conscience. In a profession where a conscience was a liability, who would want one? Rowan sat down again and pulled his chair close enough to Volta to whisper. I'll tell you what I think, Rowan said. Goddard isn't a Scythe. He's a killer. It was the first time Rowan dared to say it out loud. There's a lot written about killers from the mortal age. Monsters like Jack the Ripper or Charlie Manson or Cyber Sally. Is Cyber Sally an actual serial killer from our day and age? Or is that a made up one? I need to look it up. Now we're going to look it up. Because I have to know. It sounds like it's made up, but it could be real. Maybe it's referencing something that happened recently. Wait, Sally. Cyber Sally. Sally McNeil, aka Killer McNeil, is a former, okay. Oh my gosh, she was a former American bodybuilder who was convicted of second-degree murder of her fellow bodybuilder. That's crazy. Okay, Wikipedia, what do you have to tell me? On Valentine's Day, shooting death of her husband. She was sentenced to 19 years to life for her conviction. Numerous appeals. Is she still there? Oh, they granted her parole in 2020. Oh my gosh. Wonder why they would mention her. Or is there another Cyber Sally? Wonder, maybe, interesting. Okay, wait. Cyber Sally. Character for real? No, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, I did find a Prezi, but I don't know. I don't know if that's like the actual one. I mean, I'm seeing like the bodybuilder here. I think it might be something that's made up. I think it might be made up because I don't see anything like that. I mean, there's a person named Sally who committed murder, but I don't think it's the same Cyber Sally. Yeah, all the rest I'm seeing are just like art and stuff. So I think that one's made up. Still, that's kind of interesting. So, Cyber Sally, fictional killer from this book that Neal Shusterman made up. Okay. And the only difference between them and Goddard is that people let Goddard get away with it. The mortals knew how wrong it was, but somehow we've forgotten. Yeah, but even if that's true, what can anyone do about it? Asked Volta. The future comes whether we want it to or not. Rand and Chomsky and the dozens of other sick, twisted bastards longing to be in Goddard's inner circle are going to dominate that future. I'm sure the founding Scythes must be rolling in their graves, but the point is they are in their graves, and they're not coming back anytime soon. Volta took a deep breath and wiped the last of his tears. For your sake, Rowan, I hope you come to love killing as much as Goddard does. It would make your life so much easier, so much more rewarding. Ugh, God, it's just sickening. It's like, yeah, you'll come to like doing this horrible thing that even though I do it, I hate it. Like, I mean, Volta, I feel so bad for Volta because he he cares so much about Rowan and he does know what's right, but he's messed up. Volta is totally 100% brainwashed, manipulated into this, and you know, Rowan is trying to get him out of it, and I don't know if Volta's gonna make it out of this. The suggestion weighed heavily on him. A month ago, Rowan would have denied that he could ever become such a monster, but now he wasn't so sure. The pressure to surrender was greater every day. He had to hope that if Volta had never truly surrendered to the darkness, then maybe he might stand a chance as well. Yeah, I feel like Rowan is not as influenced as Volta. I feel like Volta seems to have been influenced heavily by Goddard, you know, to the point where he's kind of almost lost himself. So I think Rowan's a little bit more strong than that, but we'll have to see. He seems to do really well at Goddard's like training and tests and stuff. So, all right. There is no official media coverage of Gleanings, much to the chagrin of the more publicity-minded sides. Not even large-scale gleanings get on the news. Even so, plenty of personal pictures and videos of gleanings are uploaded to the Thunderhead, providing a guerrilla record. And they don't mean like a record that is controlled by guerrillas, obviously. A guerrilla record in this sense is spelled Guerilla, which it means like grassroots, like coming up from the people, like the people have created it. It's like a it's a people created thing. Yeah, I guess the best way I can put it. Which is so much more exciting and enticing than anything official. Notoriety and infamy quickly evolve into celebrity and fame for scythes, and the most brazen acts harden further into legend. Some scythes find the fame addictive and seek greater and greater celebrity. Others rather remain anonymous. I cannot deny that I am a legend, not for the simple gleanings I do now, but for the audacious ones I did more than 150 years ago. As if I weren't already immortal enough, I am further immortalized on collectible cards. The newer ones are prized by schoolchildren. The older ones are worth a fortune to hardcore collectors, regardless of the condition. I am legend, yet every day I wish that I was not. From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. It's kind of weird, right? They're like, kids collect Scythe cards like they collect baseball cards. Kind of weird, right? Baseball players play a game. They don't kill anybody. That's just weird. Okay, chapter 27, Harvest Conclave. Okay, so if you remember from the previous parts of the book, conclave is when all of the scythes get together to join and meet and discuss business, and usually it's where they also test the new apprentices and appoint the new scythes. So when Citra and Rowan last went to conclave, they were with Faraday, and he was still there. And at that conclave, they made the stipulation that whoever got the ring to become a scythe, either Citra or Rowan, the other one had to be gleaned by the one who got it. So they've been put into a literal life or death situation. And I think they're about to go see each other again. And this time they have been separated, right? They have been off with their own individual scythe mentors being trained. So this will be the first time they see each other again since Faraday's death. Self-gleaning. Chapter 27, Harvest Conclave. Citra's secret investigation. Oh, yes. And Citra secretly thinks that Faraday was murdered. Yes, murdered. And so she is trying to investigate to see if she can get some evidence to prove that he was killed by another scythe. Citra's secret investigation led to some surprises she couldn't wait to share with Rowan when she finally saw him at Harvest Conclave. She certainly couldn't share them with Scythe Curie. The two had come to trust each other, and the Scythe would have seen Citra secretly using her online credentials as a flagrant violation of that trust. Citra's life had taken a very different turn from Rowan's. She did not attend loud, lavish parties, nor did she train against live subjects. She helped cook quiet meals for heartbroken families and sparred with a black belt Bakator bot. Say that 10 times fast. Black belt Bakator bot. That is fun. She created tinctures and studied the practical use of deadly poisons in Scythe Curie's personal apothecary and toxic herb garden. She learned about all the infamous acts of both the best and the worst scythes in history. Are we getting some background music still? Did it disappear? Oh no, it's just really low. Okay, no worries. In the past, it was usually laziness, prejudice, or lack of foresight that made a bad scythe, Citra had discovered. There were those who seemed to glean too many neighbors because they couldn't be bothered to look farther. There were those who, in spite of repeated disciplinary action, would glean people with specific ethnic traits. As for poor judgment, there were plenty of examples there as well, such as Scythe's Sart, who thought it was a good idea to do all of his gleanings at rodeos, thereby destroying the sport entirely. Aw, poor rodeo clowns and people. That sucks. Since no one would attend a rodeo for fear of being gleaned. Of course, the bad sides weren't all in the past, but instead of bad, they were now called innovative, forward-thinking, like the innovative bloodbaths of Scythe Goddard and his killer cronies. Okay, Seriously, what's going on? Where's the music? Hello? Why did my sound turn off? That's very strange. Okay. That's weird. The mass gleanings at Magnetic Propulsion Laboratory, although never reported officially, was big news. And there were plenty of private videos uploaded to the Thunderhead showing Goddard and his disciples doling out immunity like bread to the poor. Rowan was right there in the middle of it. Citra didn't know what to think about that. The world had The world had a talent for rewarding bad behavior with stardom, Scythe Curie said, as she viewed some of the videos that had been uploaded. Then she got a bit pensive. I know the pitfalls of being a celebrity Scythe, she confessed, although Citra already knew. I was headstrong and stupid in my early days. I thought that by gleaning just the right people at just the right time, I could change the world for the better. I believed in my arrogance that I had a keen grasp of the big picture that others lacked. But of course, I was just as limited as anyone else. When I gleaned the president and his cabinet, it shook the world. But the world was already shaking just fine without me. They called me Miss Massacre, and as time went on, that changed to the Grande Dame of Death. I spent more than 100 years trying to fade into anonymity, but even the youngest of children know me. I am the boogeyman parents used to get their children to behave. Be good or the Grande Dame will get you. Scythe Curie shook her head sadly. Most celebrity is fleeting, but when you're a Scythe, your defining deeds stand forever. Take my advice, Citra, and remain undefined. You might be a celebrity Scythe, Citra pointed out, but even at your worst, you were nothing like Goddard. No, I wasn't, thank goodness, said Scythe Curie. I'd never took life for sport. You see, there are some who seek celebrity to change the world, and others who seek it to ensnare the world. Goddard is the second kind. And then she said something that guaranteed Citra many a sleepless night. I wouldn't trust your friend Rowan anymore. Goddard is as corrosive as acid hurled in the eye. The kindest thing you can do is win that ring when Winter Conclave comes and glean the boy quickly before that acid burns any deeper than it already has. Citra was glad that Winter Conclave was still months away. It was Harvest Conclave she had to worry about. At first, Citra had looked forward to September and the Harvest Conclave, but as it approached, she began to dread it. It wasn't the upcoming test that had troubled her. She felt she was prepared for whatever trials would be thrown at the apprentices. What she dreaded was seeing Rowan, because she had no idea what all these months with Goddard had done to him. Win that ring and glean him quickly, Scythe Curie had said. Well, Citra didn't have to worry about that now. She had 4 months until that decision would be made. But the clock never stopped ticking. It moved inexorably toward one of their deaths. Yikes. Yeah, that's really too bad. So I think we've established this already, but Citra and Rowan, there was some romantic tension with them at the end of part 2. So it makes it even that much harder that they might have to kill each other at the end of the book. So it's tough. Harvest Conclave took place on a clear but blustery September day. While a storm had kept many spectators away from the last conclave, they gathered in force today on the street before the Fulcrum City Capitol building. Even more peace officers than before were posted to keep the gawking crowds back. Some Scythes, mostly the old guard ones, arrived on foot, choosing a humble walk from their hotels over a more flashy arrival. Others pulled up in high-end cars, choosing to make the most of their celebrity status. News crews aimed their cameras but mostly kept their distance. This was, after all, not a red carpet. No questions, no interviews, but there was certainly a lot of preening. Scythes waved to the cameras and squared their shoulders, standing tall so they'd look their best on screen. Scythe Goddard and his crew showed up in a limousine, royal blue studded with mock diamonds just in case there was any question as to who was inside. As Goddard and his entourage emerged, the crowd oohed and awed. I don't have oohing and awing. I have some ambient talking. If it's coming out. I have some whispering. Whispering. Whisper, whisper, whisper. Okay. Ooh, ah. Okay, there we go. I'll have to get a sound bite with oohing and awing just for this. Okay. They oohed and awed. Where did I leave off? Oh, oohed and awed, as if their dazzling appearance rivaled a display of fireworks. There he is. It's him. He's so handsome. He's so scary. He's so well groomed. Goddard took a moment to turn to the crowd and sweep his hand in a royal wave. Then he focused on one girl from the audience, held her gaze, pointed at her, then continued up the stairs, saying nothing. He's so strange. He's so mysterious. He's so charming. That's what people, okay. To be fair, it's not like people haven't talked this way about killers in this day and age, right? People idolize killers just the same way that they're idolizing the Scythes in this book. Now, the Scythes have a legal license to kill, but there are people in today's world who write letters to serial killers who are in prison, like trying to make a relationship with them. It's gross. It's really gross. And they say the same things, right? So mysterious, so charming, so strange, right? Like it's almost like a thrill, I guess, like because they're dangerous, because they are deadly. I don't know. I don't see the personal appeal, but there are people who are into that kind of thing. As for the girl he singled out, she was left impressed and terrified and confused by his momentary attention, which was precisely the intent. So focused was the crowd on Goddard and his colorful entourage, no one much noticed Rowan bringing up the rear as they climbed up the steps to the entrance. Goddard's crew weren't the only Scythes up for the show. Scythe Kierkegaard had a crossbow slung over his shoulder. Not that he had any intention of using it today. It was merely a part of the spectacle. Still, he could have aimed it at just about anyone in the audience and taken them out. The knowledge of that made the crowd all the more excited. No one had ever been gleaned on the Capitol steps before a conclave, but that didn't mean it couldn't happen. While most Scythes approached down the main avenue, Scythe, Curie, and Citra made their entrance from a side street to avoid being the focus of the crowd's attention for as long as possible. As the stately Scythe pushed through the crowd of onlookers, a rumble erupted from the people closest to her. Closest to her as they realized who it was moving among them. People reached out to touch her silky lavender robe. She endured this as a matter of course, but one man actually grabbed the fabric, and she had to slap his hand away. "Careful," she said, meeting his eye. "I don't take kindly to the violation of my person." "I apologize, Your Honor," said the man. Then he reached for her hand, intent on touching her ring, but she pulled her hand away from him. "Don't even think about it." Citra pushed her way in front of the Scythe Curie to help clear a path for her. "Maybe we should have taken a limo," Citra said. "At least that way we wouldn't have had to fight through our way through." "That's always been a little too elitist for me," Curie said. As they cleared the crowd, a sudden gust came down from... I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. As they cleared the crowd, a sudden gust came down from the wide Capitol steps, catching Scythe Curie's long silver hair and blowing it back like a bridal train, making her look almost mystical. "I knew I should have braided it today," she said. As she and Citra climbed the white marble steps, someone to their left shouted, "We love you!" Scythe Curie stopped and turned, unable to find the speaker, so she addressed them all. "Why?" she demanded. But now, under her cool scrutiny, no one responded. "I could end your existence at any moment. Why love me?" Still, no one answered, but the exchange attracted a cameraman who moved forward, getting a little too close. Scythe Curie smacked the camera so hard it wrenched the man's whole body around, and he nearly dropped it. "Mind your manners," said the Scythe. "Yes, Your Honor. Sorry, Your Honor." She continued up the steps with Citra behind her. Hard to imagine that I used to love this attention. Now I'd avoid it entirely if I could. "You didn't seem this tense at the last conclave," Citra noted. "That's because I didn't have an apprentice being tested. Instead, I was the one testing other sides' apprentices." A test that Citra had failed spectacularly, but she didn't feel like bringing that up. "Do you know what today's test will be like?" Citra asked as they reached the top of the stairs and stepped into the entry vestibule. So, the thing about Citra and Rowan is that they're both very competitive. So going into this conclave, going into the apprenticeship altogether has been a very competitive experience for both of them. At the last conclave, Citra was trying to ask Scythe Faraday what the test was going to be, what the questions were going to be about. She kept bothering him about it because she really wanted to know so she could be prepared. But the whole point is that they don't know what the test is, so it creates this element of surprise, it gets the the more genuine response from some of them because it's they're not prepared. So she just asked Scythe Curie what the test will be. Again, "No, but I do know that it's being administered by Scythe Cervantes, and he tends to be very physically minded. For all I know, he'll have you tilting at windmills." As before, the sides greeted one another in the grand rotunda, waiting for the assembly room doors to open. Breakfast was set out on tables in the center of the rotunda, featuring a pyramid of Danish that must have been taken hours to assemble, but seconds to fall, as sides carelessly took the lower Danish without regard to the ones above. The waitstaff scrambled to gather the fallen pastries before they could be ground underfoot. Scythe Curie found it all very amusing. Yes, it's pretty funny. I mean, it's kind of funny. You think that Scythes would be kind of smart people, but they're still the kind of people that take the pastry from the bottom of the pyramid, It was foolhardy of the caterer to think that Scythes would leave anything in a state of order. Citra spotted Junior Scythe Goodall, the girl who had been ordained at the last conclave. She had her robes made by Claude de Glace. Claude de Glace, one of the world's preeminent fashion designers. It had been a monumental mistake because today's designers were all about shocking people out of their happy place. Scythe Goodall's orange and blue striped robe made her look more like a circus clown than a scythe. Yeah, the fact that it's striped probably doesn't look good. Citra couldn't help but notice how Goddard and his junior scythes were the center of even more attention than at the vernal conclave. Although there were a number of scythes who turned a cold shoulder, even more crowded them, seeking to ingratiate themselves. "There are more and more scythes who think like Goddard," Scythe Curie said quietly to Citra. "They've slipped between the cracks like snakes, infiltrating our ranks, supplanting the best of us like weeds." Citra thought about Faraday. A decent scythe most certainly choked out by the weeds. "The killers are rising to power," Scythe Curie said, "and if they do, the days of this world will be very dark indeed. It is left to the truly honorable scythes to stand firm against it. I look forward to the day you join in that fight." "Thank you, Your Honor." Citra had no problem fighting the good fight if she became a scythe. It was the events that would lead up to it that she couldn't bear to consider. Scythe Curie went off to greet several of the old guard scythes who held true to the founder's ideals. That's when Citra finally spotted Rowan. He didn't bask in the false glow of Goddard. Instead, he was his own little center of attention. He was surrounded by other apprentices and even a few junior scythes. They chatted, they laughed, and Citra found herself feeling slighted that Rowan hadn't even sought her out. Aww. It's too bad, Citra. You're enemies now. Come on. Scythe Curie's told you can't trust him. And she's right to say that. Just saying, you gotta put your guard up, Citra. Rowan had, in fact, tried to find her. Oh, okay, I was wrong. Rowan had, in fact, tried to find her, but by the time Citra entered the rotunda, Rowan had already been set upon by unexpected admirers. Some were envious of his position with Goddard, others were just curious, and others were clearly hoping to attach themselves to his rising star. Political positioning started young in the Scythedom. "You were there at that office building, weren't you?" one of the other apprentices said. A spat, one of the new ones, at conclave for the first time. "I saw you in the videos." "He wasn't just there," said another spat. "He had Goddard's freaking ring, handing out immunity." "Wow, is that even allowed?" Rowan shrugged. "Goddard said it was, and anyway, it wasn't like I asked him to give me his ring. He just did it." One of the junior Scythes sighed wistfully. "Oh, man, he must really like you if he let you do that." The thought that Goddard might actually like him made Rowan uncomfortable, because the things that Goddard liked, Rowan categorically despised. "So what's he like?" one girl asked. "Like no one I've ever met," Rowan told her. "I wish I was his apprentice," said one of the spats, then grimaced like he had just bitten into a rancid cheese Danish. "I was taken on by Scythe Mal." Scythe Mal, Rowan knew, was another showboater, enjoying the celebrity of his public image. He was notoriously independent and didn't align himself with the old guard He didn't align himself with the old guard or the new. Faraday. I just totally lost my spot because I messed up that line. Rowan didn't know if the man was a man who voted. Rowan didn't know if he was a man who voted his own conscience or sold his vote to the highest bidder. Faraday would have known. There were so many things Rowan missed about being Faraday's apprentice. The inside scoop was one of them. "Goddard and his junior Scythes totally owned the Capitol steps when they came up," said an apprentice Rowan remembered from the last conclave, the one who knew his poisons. "They looked so good." "Have you decided what color you'll be? And what jewels you'll have on your robe?" a girl asked, suddenly hanging on his arm like a fast-growing vine. He didn't know which would be more awkward, pulling out of her grip or not. "Invisible," Rowan said. Okay, we still like Rowan. Okay, I'm not mad at this kid. He's good. He's snarky. He's just in a bad place. "Invisible," Rowan said. "I'll come up the State House steps naked." "Those'll be some jewels." I can't read this. I can't read this out loud. Okay. Just gonna pass on. We're just gonna skip it. Everybody laughed. It was a good joke. We're skipping it. Then Citra pushed her way through, and Rowan felt as if he was caught doing something he shouldn't. "Citra, hi." That's my best Rowan impression. He said. It felt so forced, he just wanted to take it back and find another way to say it. He shrugged out of the vine girl's grip, but it was too late because Citra had seen it. "Looks like you've made a lot of friends," Citra said. "No, not really," he said, then realized he had just insulted them all. "I mean, we're all friends, right? We're in the same boat." "Same boat," repeated Citra with deadpan dullness, but daggers in her eyes, as sharp as the ones that had used to hang in Faraday's weapons den. "Good to see you too, Rowan." Then she strode away. "Get him, girl." "Let her go," said the vine girl. "She'll be history after the next conclave anyway, right?" Rowan didn't even excuse himself as he left them. He caught up with Citra quickly, which told him she really wasn't trying all that hard to get away. That was a good sign. He gently grabbed her arm and she turned to him. "Hey," he said. "I'm sorry about back there." "No, I get it," she said. "You're a big deal now. You have to flaunt it. It's not like that. Do you think I wanted them fawning all over me like that? Come on, you know me better." Citra hesitated. "It's been 4 months," she said. 4 months can change a person. That much was true, but some things hadn't changed. Some things hadn't changed. He still has feelings for her. Rowan knew what she wanted to hear, but that would just be another dance, another bit of posturing. But it hurts to... So he told her the truth. It's good to see you, Citra, he said, but it hurts to see you. It hurts a lot, and I don't know what to do about it. He could tell that reached her because her eyes began to glisten with tears that she blinked away before they could spill. I know. I hate that it has to be this way. Aww. I'll tell you what, said Rowan. Let's not even think about Winter Conclave right now. Let's be in the here and now, and let Winter Conclave take care of itself. Citra nodded. Agreed. Then she took a deep breath. Let's take a walk. There's something I have to show you. They walked along the outer edge of the rotunda, passing the archways where the scythes wheeled and dealed. Citra pulled out her phone and projected a series of holograms into her palm, cupping it so no one but Rowan could see. I dug these out of the Thunderhead's back brain. How did you do that? Never mind how. What's important is that I did, and what I found. The holograms were of Scythe Faraday on the streets near his home. These are from his last day, Citra said. I was able to retrace at least some of his steps that day. But why? Just watch. The hologram showed him being let into someone's home. That's the house of the woman he introduced us to at the market. He spent a few hours there. Then he went to his cafe. Citra swiped to another video showing him going into the restaurant. I think he may have met someone there, but I don't know who. Okay, said Rowan, so he was saying goodbye to people. So far it seems consistent with the things someone would do if it was their last day on Earth. Citra swiped again. The next video showed him going up the stairs to the train station. This was 5 minutes before he died, Citra said. We know that it happened at this station. But guess what? The camera on that train platform had been vandalized, supposedly by unsavories. It was down for the entire day, so there's no visual record of what actually happened on the platform. A train pulled out of the station, and a moment later, a train pulled in, heading in the other direction. That was the one that killed Faraday. Although Rowan couldn't see it, he grimaced as if he had. You think someone killed him and made it look like he did it himself? Rowan looked around to make sure they weren't being observed and spoke quietly. If that's your only evidence, it's pretty weak. I know. So I kept digging. She swiped back and replayed the scene of Faraday walking toward the station. There were 5 witnesses. I couldn't track them down without digging into the Scythedom's records, and if I did that, they'd know I was looking. But it only makes sense that those witnesses would have gone up those stairs too, right? There were 18 people who went up the stairs around the time that Faraday died. Some of them probably got on this first train. She pointed at the train leaving the station, but not all of them. Of those 18 people, I was able to identify about half of them, and 3 of them were granted immunity that very day. It was enough to take the wind out of Rowan to make him feel lightheaded. They were bribed to say it was a self-cleaning? If you were just an ordinary citizen and had witnessed one scythe killing another and then were offered immunity to keep your mouth shut, what would you do? Rowan wanted to believe he'd seek justice, but he thought back to the days before he became an apprentice, when the appearance of a scythe was the most frightening thing he could imagine. I'd kiss the ring and keep my mouth shut. Across the rotunda, the doors of the conclave chamber opened and the scythes began to file in. Who do you think did it? Rowan asked. Who had the most to gain by getting Faraday out of the picture? Neither of them needed to say it out loud. They both knew the answer. Rowan knew that Goddard was capable of unthinkable things, but would he kill another scythe? Rowan shook his head, not wanting to believe it. That's not the only explanation, he told her. It might not have even been a scythe at all. Maybe it was a family member of someone he gleaned, someone who wanted revenge. Anyone could have taken his ring, pushed him into the path of the train, and used the ring to give immunity to the witnesses. They'd have to stay quiet then, or they'd be considered accomplices. Citra opened her mouth to refute it, but closed it again. It was possible. Even though using Faraday's ring would have frozen the killer's finger, it was possible. I didn't think of that, she said. Or what about a tonist? The tone cults hate scythes. The rotunda was quickly emptying. They left the alcove and moved toward the chamber doors. You don't have enough facts to accuse anyone of anything, Rowan said. You should let it sit for now. Let it sit? You can't be serious. I said for now. You'll have full access to the Scythedom's records once you're ordained, and you'll be able to prove exactly what happened. Citra stopped in her tracks. What do you mean, once I'm ordained? It could just as easily be you. Or is there something I'm missing? Rowan pursed his lips, furious at himself for the slip. Let's just get inside before they close the doors. Oh, it didn't go off. Hello? Okay, so interesting. Scythe Curie told Citra, don't trust Rowan, right? She's like, specifically, don't trust that friend of yours. He's hanging out with people who are bad news. Don't trust him. But she does trust him, and she tells him what she thinks happened to Scythe Faraday. And I think, unfortunately, this was a bad move. I think she shouldn't have told Rowan because, you know, I guess maybe she wants to, like, put her idea across to him. Like, hey, you know, give me some feedback. And she did. She did get some good feedback. Like, you know, you don't have enough evidence, which is a pretty big deal. But she didn't have enough evidence, right? She just had the fact that the camera was messed with and that the witnesses on the platform received immunity, which is some evidence, right? Like that's a pretty big tell that something not so good went down, right? They don't have video footage, and all of those people down there who saw him glean himself got immunity. How did that happen? And Rowan telling her to, like, kind of slow down on it is I think the good thing to say, because she can't really do anything with the information she has. She needs more information. But I almost would have trusted Scythe Curie over trusting Rowan, because, you know, like, Rowan's being manipulated, like hardcore influenced, and I don't think he's all good. You know, I mean, I think he's still good. I think he is still there, right? He still clearly has feelings for Citra because it was hard to see her and he wanted to talk to her, but he's starting to really like doing what Goddard tells him to do, which is not a good sign. So, yeah. Okay, we'll see let's continue the Harvest Conclave, see what more goes down. The rituals of Conclave were just as they had been before. The tolling of the dead, the washing of hands, grievances, and discipline. Once again, an anonymous accusation was leveled against Scythe Goddard, this time accusing him of handing out immunity too freely. "Who brings this accusation?" Goddard demanded. "Let the accuser stand and identify his or herself." Of course, no one took credit, which allowed Goddard to retain the floor. "I will admit that this accusation has merit," Goddard said. "I am a generous man, and I have perhaps been too liberal in my doling of immunity. I make no excuses, and I am unrepentant. I throw myself on the mercy of the High Blade to levy my punishment." High Blade Xenocrates waved his hand dismissively. Yes, just sit down, Goddard. Your penance will be to shut up for the whole 5 minutes." This brought a round of laughter. Goddard bowed to the High Blade and took his seat, and although a few scythes, including Scythe Curie, tried to object, pointing out that historically scythes who overused their ring had their power to grant immunity limited to the families of the gleaned, their complaints fell on deaf ears. Xenocrates overruled all objections in the interest of speeding up the day's proceedings. "Amazing," said Scythe Curie quietly to Citra. "Goddard's becoming untouchable. He can't get away with anything. I wish someone would have had the foresight to glean him as a child. The world would be better off." Yikes. Citra avoided Rowan at lunch, afraid that being seen together more than they already had been might raise suspicion. She stood by Scythe Curie for lunch, and the Scythe introduced Citra to several of the greatest living scythes. Scythe Mier, who had once been a delegate to the Global Conclave in Geneva, Scythe Mandela, who was in charge of the Bejeweling Committee, and Scythe Hideyoshi, I think. Let's look this up. Let's change screens, and I just want to look up this pronunciation real quick. Hi, Plasma Bolt. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Okay, what did I want to look up? Hideyoshi, I think is how it's written, but I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Totomi Hideyoshi. He's a samurai, named after a samurai. Pronunciation, please. Pronunciation. Okay, let me turn this off real quick.
Hideyoshi.
Oh, Hideyoshi.
Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi.
Yeah, Hideyoshi. Okay.
Hideyoshi.
Yeah, Hideyoshi. Scythe Hideyoshi, named after not Sally McNeil, but named after a samurai, a former samurai. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Hey, Sadiq, yeah, I do remember you. I do. How are you doing? You are graduated, I'm pretty sure. I went to the graduation in June or May. I went to the graduation in May. I hope you're doing well, Sadiq. It's good to connect with you again. Good to hear. Right now, if you are interested, we are reading Scythe by Neal Shusterman. For my students this year, they actually have to do a summer reading project, and this is one of the books on the summer reading project. So we're reading it together, and we're just having some fun with it. So thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us. If you like this book, I highly recommend that you buy it. We are in the third part of the book, so we're almost halfway through the whole series, or the whole book. It is a series, so there's 3 in the whole series. It's really good. And a lot is happening right now. A lot is happening. There's so much drama and conflict. Yes. Okay, let's see. So she's being introduced to different scythes. Hideyoshi, the one scythe known to have mastered the skill of gleaning through his hypnosis. Ooh, very interesting. Citra tried not to be too starstruck. Meeting them almost gave her hope that the old guard could triumph against the likes of Goddard. She kept glancing over at Rowan, who, once more, couldn't seem to get away from the other apprentices, although she didn't know how hard he tried. It's a bad sign, said Scythe Hideyoshi, when our young hopefuls gravitate so openly to the enemy. Rowan's not the enemy, Citra blurted, but Scythe Curie put a hand on her shoulder to quiet her. He represents the enemy, Scythe Curie said. At least he does to those other apprentices. Scythe Mandela sighed. There shouldn't be enemies in the Scythedom. We should all be on the same side, the side of humanity. It was generally agreed among the old guard that these were troubling times, but aside from raising objections that were repeatedly dismissed, no one took action. Citra found herself getting increasingly anxious after lunch, as the weapon manufacturers touted their wares and various motions were hotly debated. Things like whether a scythe's ring should be worn on the left or the right hand, and whether or not a scythe should be allowed to endorse a commercial product, like running shoes or a breakfast cereal. It all seemed insignificant to Citra. Pretty insignificant. Why should any of that matter when the hollowed act of gleaning was slowly devolving into mortal age murder? So true. Also, really interesting that they would discuss product endorsement, I guess, because they're like the only kind of real celebrities in the world, but they're also bringers of death. You know, it's crazy to think that, like, if it was the same way in our world, like if celebrities had a power over our lives, right? Like, would we still like them as much? I don't know. It's still kind of weird. Yeah, imagine the Grim Reaper on your favorite breakfast cereal. That'd be interesting. Then at last it came time for the apprentice trials. As before, the candidates for Scythedom were first, having been tested the night before. Of the 4 candidates who made it through their final test, only 2 were ordained. The other 2 had to suffer the walk of shame as they exited the chamber and went back to their old lives. Citra took guilty pleasure at the fact that the girl who had been sucking up to Rowan was one of those ejected. Once the new sides were given their rings and took their new names, the remaining apprentices called down front. Today's test, announced Scythe Cervantes, will be competition in the martial art of Bakator. The candidates will be paired and judged on their performance. So the last test that they took in the conclave was a questions test. So their mind, right? And this one's more about the physical portion of their training. And they're going to be paired up. And they're going to fight each other. So, some thinking here. I wonder who Citra is going to be paired up with. I wonder. I think we know. And they're going to be the first ones. Yes, finally some action. Okay, a mat was brought in and rolled out on the semicircle space in front of the rostrum. Citra took a deep breath. She had this. Bakator was a balance among strength, agility, and focus, and she had found her perfect balance. Just go down a little bit there. Go down. And then they stuck a blade right in the heart of her confidence. Citra Terranova will spar against Rowan Damish. Duh. Like, how did you not see that coming? How were you like, I don't know. I feel like that's obvious. You could see that coming a mile away. A murmur from the crowd. Citra realized this was no random draw. Yeah, duh. And they were paired intentionally, doomed to be adversaries. How could it be any other way? Her eyes met Rowan's, but his expression gave away nothing. The other matches went first. Oh, they didn't go first. Okay, so they're going last, which, you know, they're the drama couple, right? They're the ones that's like the main show. Each apprentice gave their best, but Bakator was a bruising discipline and not everyone's strength. Some victories were close, others were routs. And then it came time for Citra and Rowan's match. Still, Rowan's expression gave her neither camaraderie nor sympathy, nor misery at having to be set against each other. Okay, let's do this, is all he said, and they began to circle each other. Okay, here we go. Rowan knew that today was his first true test, but not the one they had devised for him. Rowan's test was to look convincing but still throw the match. Goddard, Xenocrates, Cervantes, and for that matter, all the Scythes assembled needed to believe he was doing his best, but that his best was just not good enough. Because he's trying to throw because he doesn't want to have to kill Citra. So he's trying to make it look like he's still trying, but also gonna throw the match because he doesn't want to beat Citra in this game of becoming Scythe. He wants her to win. And he kind of let that slip to her earlier when he said, well, when you become ordained, you'll be able to do it and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, what, wait, what does that mean? And he almost let it slip to her that he was going to throw the match. And she fully intended to just let her kill him, which is like, okay, I feel like he's not looking at it from her perspective enough because you're then asking her to do this horrible thing, right? That she clearly doesn't want to do either. So, okay. Here we go. It began with the ritualistic rhythmic circling, then posturing and physical taunting. Rowan launched himself at Citra, threw a kick that he telegraphed with his body language and missed her by a fraction of an inch. He lost his footing and fell down on one knee. A very good start. He turned quickly, rising, remained off balance, and she lunged toward him. She thought she would take him down with an elbow strike, but instead she grabbed him, pulling him forward, even as she appeared to push him back. It brought him to balance and made it appear as if her move had failed, that she didn't have the leverage to do the job. Rowan backed away and caught her gaze. She was grinning at him, her eyes intensely on his. It was part of the taunting that Bakator was known for. But this was so much more. He could read her just as clearly as if she were speaking out loud. You're not going to throw this match, her eyes said. Fight badly, I dare you, because no matter how poorly you try to fight, I will find a way to make you look good. Frustrated, Rowan launched himself at her again, an open palm strike at her shoulder, intentionally 2 inches off from the perfect leverage point. But she actually moved into it. His palm connected. She spun back with the force of his strike and went down. Damn you, Citra, damn you. They're so cute. Aww. She could beat him at everything, even at losing. Look at that. Meant to be. It's a true Romeo and Juliet story. Okay, I also like this because you get a switchback between Rowan and Citra's perspective. So we had a break right before that part I just read with Rowan, and now we have another break, and we're going to go back to Citra's perspective. Citra knew from the moment Rowan made his first kick what he was up to, and it infuriated her. How dare he think? Okay, I feel like this music is too calm. I need some action. We need some action music. Mythical Village of Wizards. No, we need some kind of fighting music. It's like, can we do martial art fighting music? Fight music. Can we do that? Martial arts music? Is this it? Okay. It's kind of upbeat though. I feel like I need it to be a little bit more intense. Okay, what about this? The Way of the Samurai. Okay, yeah, I think this is what we're gonna go with. I just don't want it to be too loud. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. This is definitely the music for this scene. Okay, here we go. Citra knew from the moment Rowan made his first kick what he was up to, and it infuriated her. How dare he think he had to fight badly for her to win this match? He had grown so arrogant under Scythe Goddard that he actually thought this wouldn't be a fair fight? Sure, she had been training, but so had she. Oh, sure, he had been training, but so had she. So what if he had grown stronger? That also meant he was bulkier and moved slower. A fair fight was the only way to keep their consciences clean. Didn't Rowan realize that by sacrificing himself, he'd be dooming her as well? Yeah, hello. She would sooner glean herself as her first act as Scythe than accept his sacrifice. Rowan glared at her now, furious, and it only made her laugh. Is that the best you can do? She asked. He threw out a low kick, just slow enough for her to anticipate and without any force behind it. All she needed to do was lower her stance and the kick would have no effect. Instead, she responded by raising her center of gravity, just enough for the kick to knock her feet out from under her. She fell to the mat, but righted herself quickly so it wouldn't look as if she had done it on purpose. Then she threw her shoulder against him and hooked her right leg around his, applying force, but not enough to make his knee buckle. He grabbed her, twisted, flipped them both down to the mat, landing with her in the dominant position over him. She countered by forcing him to roll over and pin her. He tried to release her, but she held his arms in place so he couldn't. "What's the matter, Rowan?" she whispered. "Don't know what to do when you're on top of a girl?" Okay, this is PG-13. He finally pulled away and she got up. They faced each other one more time, circling in the familiar battle dance while Cervantes circled them in the other direction, like a satellite, completely missing what was really going on between them. Ooh. What's really going on between Citra and Rowan? Rowan knew the match was almost over. He was about to win, and by winning, he would lose. He must have been crazy thinking Citra would allow him to willingly throw the match. They both cared too much about each other. That was the problem. Citra would never willingly accept the Scythe's ring as long as her feelings for him got in the way. All at once, Rowan knew exactly what he had to do. Okay, this is gonna be a tough part, so prepare yourself. With only 10 seconds left to the match, all Citra had to do was keep up the dance. Rowan was clearly the victor. 10 more seconds of guarded circling, and Cervantes would blow the whistle. But then Rowan did something Citra hadn't anticipated at all. He threw himself forward with lightning speed, not clumsy, not feigning false incompetence, but with perfect practice skill. In an instant, he had put her in a headlock, squeezing her neck tight enough for the pain nanites to kick in. And then he leaned in close and snarled into her ear. "You fell right into my trap," he said. "Now you get what you deserve." Then he flung her body into the air, twisting her head the other way. Her neck broke with a loud and horrible snap, and darkness came over Citra like a landslide. That's what everybody just did. Everybody just gasped. Okay, so, yeah. Pretty intense stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Rowan just totally snapped. Rowan just totally snapped her neck. Just totally killed her. Yep. That happened. Now remember, she can't really die. Okay, she's got immunity. So she's just going to be revived at a revival center. But the match is over. And Rowan has definitely, maybe I guess he's won the match. I mean, he's incapacitated. He's deadish. He made her deadish, right? She's dead, kind of. So Rowan is really taking things pretty far. And I bet Goddard is going to be happy about this, actually. He might actually be happy that Rowan has shown so much violence against his former apprentice, training mate that he was with. So it's a pretty raw deal. Okay, let's see. Let's see how they respond. The rest of the Scythedom responds to Rowan's actions. I don't know what else to call it. Rowan dropped Citra to the ground as the crowd drew a collective gasp. Cervantes blew his whistle violently. Illegal move! Illegal move! Cervantes shouted, just as Rowan knew he would. Disqualification! Definitely shocking. I got a phone call. And a voicemail? Okay, great. Disqualification! The gathering Scythes began to roar. Some were furious at Cervantes. Others were spouting vitriol at Rowan for what he had done. Rowan stood stoic, letting no emotion show. He forced himself to look down at Citra's body. Her head was twisted practically backward. Her eyes were open but no longer seeing. She was deadish as deadish can be. He bit down on his tongue until it began to bleed. The chamber doors swung open and guards raced in, hurrying toward the deadish girl in the middle of the room. The high blade came up to Rowan. Go back to your scythe, he said, not even trying to hide his disgust. I'm sure he'll discipline you accordingly. Yes, Your Excellency. Disqualification. None of them realized that. To Rowan, it was the perfect victory. He watched as the guards picked Citra up and carried her limp as a sack of potatoes outside where, no doubt, an ambudrone was waiting to take her to the nearest revival center. You'll be fine, Citra. You'll be back with Scythe Curie in no time. But you won't forget what happened today, and I hope you never forgive me. Wow, Rowan. Wow. Yeah, I definitely think that's a surefire way to make Citra hate you. You did it. You lost. Good job, buddy. Good job. I feel bad for Rowan because he's literally self-sabotaging. But he knows how to do it. Like, that's the other thing, is he's totally confident in his ability to just like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to win this apprenticeship. I don't want to. I don't want to be around Scythe Goddard. None of that stuff. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see that this is where Rowan is coming from. He doesn't really see another way out other than to fail. Okay. Moving on. How close are we? Okay, so we are not far from the end of from the end of part 3. We will definitely make it through the rest of this part today, if the power doesn't go out again. I fought against the purge. There are things I've done that I am not proud of, but I am very proud that I fought against that. Question, wait, the purge is in this book? Wait a minute. Are they part of the same universe? I can't recall which Scythe began that odious campaign to glean only those who were born mortal, but it spread throughout each regional Scythedom, a viral idea in a post-viral time. Shouldn't those who were born to expect death be the sole subjects of gleaning? Went the popular wisdom. But it was bigotry masquerading as wisdom, selfishness posing as enlightenment. And not enough sides argued because those born in the post-mortal age found mortal borns to be too uncomfortably different in the way they thought and in the way they lived their lives. Let them die with the age that bore them, cried the post-mortal purists in the Scythedom. In the end, it was deemed a gross violation of the second commandment, and all those Scythes who participated in the purge were severely disciplined. But by then it was too late to undo what had been done. We lost our ancients. We lost our elders. We lost our living lifeline to the past. There are still mortal borns around, but they hide their age and their history for fear of being targeted again. Yes, I fought the purge, but the Thunderhead did not. By its own law of non-interference with Scythe affairs, it could do nothing to stop the purge. All it could do was bear witness. The Thunderhead allowed us to make that costly mistake, leaving the Scythedom to wallow in its own regret to this very day. I often wonder, should the Scythedom run entirely off the rails and decide to glean all of humanity in a grand suicide of global gleaning? Would the Thunderhead break its non-interference law and stop it? Or would it bear witness again as we destroyed ourselves, leaving nothing behind but a living cloud of our knowledge, accomplishments, and so-called wisdom? Would the Thunderhead grieve our passing, I wonder? And if so, would it grieve as the child who lost a parent, or as the parent who could not save a petulant child from its own poor choices? From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. Chapter 28. Hydrogen burning in the heart of the sun. Okay, we're back to Citra. She's been made deadish by Rowan, which means she's about to be revived. But we're about to see kind of the implications of what Rowan has done and how it's going to affect Citra, because she's really now going to be in a tough spot. She realizes what Rowan's been doing, right? She realizes that he's been trying to throw the competition, but now I think she's going to try in earnest to try and figure out what happened to Faraday. And that might lead somewhere. But first, let's find some music that we can actually stand and listen to while we read this. Calming. Okay, music and ambiance. Here we go. Okay. I think I can handle this. That's better. Scam likely just wants to keep calling me, just wants to talk so much. Okay, we're gonna turn this down a little bit. Or maybe we turn it all the way up. That seems really loud though. Okay, wait. This. We're gonna do the opposite of what I'm trying to do right now. Okay, go here like this. Perfect. I think that's the trick. Do that. Yeah. Maybe still too loud. Okay. I think we can handle that. Can we handle that? Maybe. Maybe not. Right here. That's where it needs to be. Okay. Chapter 28. Hydrogen burning in the heart of the sun. Citra Terra Nova, said a voice, both powerful yet gentle. Citra Terra Nova, can you help me? Who is that? Is someone there? Curious, said the voice. Very curious. Being deadish was a pain in the ass. Remember, guys, this is PG-13. No question about it. When she was once more pronounced legally alive, she awoke to the unfamiliar but professionally friendly face of a revival nurse checking her vitals. She tried to look around her, but her neck was still in a brace. Welcome back, honey, the nurse said. The room seemed to spin every time she moved her eyes. It was more than just the pain nanites. She must have had all sorts of numbing, rejuvenating chemicals and microbots inside her. How long? She rasped. Just 2 days, the nurse said cheerily. Simple spinal severing, nothing too hard for us to handle. 2 days were robbed from her life. 2 days she didn't have to spare. My family? Sorry, honey, but this was a Scythe matter. They weren't notified. The nurse patted her hand. You can tell them all about it when you next see them. Now, the best thing for you to do is relax. You'll be here one more day, and then you'll be good as new. Then she offered Citra ice cream that was the best she had ever tasted. That evening, Scythe Curie came and filled her in on all she had missed. Rowan had been disqualified and severely reprimanded for his poor sportsmanship. Are you telling me that because he was disqualified, I won? Unfortunately, no, Scythe Curie said. He was clearly going to beat you. It was decided that both of you lose. We really need to work on your martial arts skills, Citra. Well, that's just great, Citra said, exasperated for a very different reason than Scythe Curie thought. So now Rowan and I are both 0 for 2 at Conclave. Scythe Curie sighed. Third time's the charm, she said. Now, it will all come down to how well you do at Winter Conclave, and I have faith that you will shine in your final test. Citra closed her eyes, remembering the look on Rowan's face when he held her in that headlock. There was something cold there, calculating. In that moment, she saw a side of him she had never seen before. It was as if he was looking forward to what he was about to do to her, as if he was going to enjoy it. She was so confused. Did he really plan that move from the beginning? Did he not know he'd be disqualified, or was disqualification his plan? What was Rowan like after it happened? Citra asked Scythe Curie. Did he seem shocked at all about what he had done? Did he kneel down to me? Did he help carry me out to the ambudrone? Scythe Curie took a moment before she answered. Then, finally, she said, He just stood there, Citra. His face was like stone, defiant, and as unrepentant as his scythe. Citra tried to turn away, but even though the brace was now gone, her neck was still too stiff to move. He's not who you think he is anymore, Scythe Curie said slowly, so that it would sink in. No, Citra agreed. He's not. But for the life of her, she had no idea who he was now. Rowan thought he would receive another brutal beating when he returned to the mansion. That couldn't have been further from the truth. Scythe Goddard was all flamboyance and bright chatter. He called for the butler to bring champagne and glasses for everyone, right there in the foyer so they could toast Rowan's audacity. That took more nerve than I thought you had, boy, Goddard said. Hear, hear, seconded Scythe Rand. You can come to my room and break my neck anytime. Gross. Gross. He didn't just break her neck, Scythe Goddard pointed out. He unflinchingly snapped her spine. Everyone heard it. I'm sure it woke up the Scythe sleeping in the back row. Classic, said Scythe Chomsky, guzzling his champagne down, not waiting for the toast. It was a powerful statement you made, said Goddard. It reminded everyone that you are my apprentice, and you are not to be trifled with. Then he became a little quieter, almost gentle. I know, you had feelings for that girl, yet you did what needed to be done, and more. I was disqualified, Rowan reminded him. Officially, yes, Goddard agreed, but you gained the admiration of quite a few important Scythes, and made enemies of others, Volta pointed out. Nothing wrong with drawing a line in the sand, Goddard responded. It takes a strong man to do that, the kind of man I'm happy to raise a glass to. Rowan looked up to see Esme sitting at the top of the grand staircase watching them. He wondered if she knew what he had done, and the thought that she might made him feel ashamed. To Rowan, said Scythe Goddard, holding his glass high, the scourge of the stiff-necked and the shatterer of spines. Zombie, you can't do that to my foot. Please stop. I'm sorry, my cat just attacked my foot, so give me a second. Zombie, let go. No, it's my foot. Let go of it. Please. Okay. What's the matter? What's the matter? I don't feed him enough. He's trying to kill me. Trying to eat my foot. Thanks, Zombie. Love you too. Yes, I know. He's horribly neglected. Feel bad for him. Okay. To Rowan. Scourge of the Stiff and the Shatterer of Spines. It was the most bitter glass Rowan had ever had to swallow. And now, said Goddard, "I do believe a party is in order." The party that followed the Harvest Conclave was one for the record books, and no one was immune to Goddard's contagious energy. Even before guests started to arrive and the first of 5 DJs cranked up the music. Should we have music? Like not as intense music? This is kind of putting me to sleep, I'm not gonna lie. How about we do dystopian club music? Here we go. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Even before guests started to arrive and the first of 5 DJs cranked up the music, Goddard threw his arms wide in the mansion's ornate living room as if he could reach from wall to wall and said to no one in particular, "I am in my element, and my element is hydrogen burning in the heart of the sun." That's the title of the chapter. It was so outrageous a thing to say, it even made Rowan laugh. "He's so full of crap," Scythe Rand whispered to Rowan, "but you gotta love it." As the rooms and the terraces and the pool deck began to fill with partiers, Rowan began to rise from the funk he had been left in after his awful bout with Citra. "I checked for you," Scythe Volta told him. "Citra's conscious and has 1 more day in the revival center. She'll go back home fully recovered with Scythe Curie, no harm, no foul. Well, plenty of foul, but that's what you wanted, wasn't it?" Rowan didn't answer him. He wondered if anyone else was insightful enough to know why he did what he did. He hoped not. "Okay, listen." "Okay, fine. Keep my sock. Go ahead. You can have it." Rowan didn't answer him, but he hoped not. Then Volta got serious in the midst of the revelry around them. "Don't lose the Scythehood to her, Rowan," he said. "At least not on purpose. If she beats you fair and square, that's one thing. But submitting yourself to her blade because of raging hormones is just plain stupid." Maybe Volta was right. Perhaps he should do his best in their final trial. And if his best outshined Citra's, he would accept the Scythe ring. And then maybe he would glean himself as his first and only act. Then he'd never be faced with having to glean Citra. It comforted Rowan that he had a way out, even though it was a worst-case scenario. The rich and famous arrived by helicopter, by limousine, and in one bizarre but memorable entrance, by jetpack. Goddard made a point to introduce Rowan to them all, as if Rowan were a prize worth showing off. "Watch this boy," Goddard told his high-profile guests. "He's going places." Rowan had never felt so valued and validated. It was hard to hate a man who treated him like the meat rather than the lettuce. "This is how life was meant to be lived," Goddard told Rowan as they luxuriated in his open-faced cabana, looking out over the festivities. "Experiencing all there is to experience and enjoying the company of others, even when some of those others are paid to be here." Goddard looked out at the crowded pool deck that would have been far less dense and far less beautiful had it not been for the presence of professional partygoers. "There are always extras in every production," he told Rowan. "They fill in the gaps and make for pleasant scenery. We wouldn't want everyone to be a celebrity, would we? They do nothing but fight." In the pool, a net went up and dozens gathered for a game of volleyball. "Look around you, Rowan," Goddard said in utter contentment. "Have you ever experienced such good times as these? The commoners love us, not because of the way we glean, but because of the way we live. We need to accept our role as the new royalty." Rowan didn't see himself as royalty, but he was willing to play along, at least today. So he went to the pool and jumped in, declaring himself captain of the team and joining Scythe Goddard's loyal subjects in their game. The thing about Scythe Goddard's parties is that it was very difficult not to have a good time, no matter how hard you tried. And with all the good feelings that abounded, it was easy to forget what a ruthless butcher Goddard was. But was he a killer of scythes? Citra hadn't directly accused Goddard, But it was clear that he was her prime suspect. Citra's investigation was troubling, yet try as he might, Rowan could not find a single instance since he had been in Goddard's presence where Goddard did anything that was illegal by Scythe law. His interpretations of the commandments might have been stretches, but nothing he did was actually a violation. Even his gleaning rampages were not forbidden by anything but custom and tradition. The old guard despises me because I live and glean with a flair they sorely lack, Goddard had told Rowan. They're a crowd of bitter backstabbers, envious that I've found the secret of being the perfect scythe. Well, perfection was subjective. Rowan certainly wouldn't call the man a perfect scythe, but there was nothing in Goddard's repertoire of malfeasance that would suggest he would murder Faraday. On the third day of this seemingly unending bash, there were two unexpected party guests, or at least unexpected to Rowan. We're going to get some new information here. This is exciting. The first was the High Blade Xenocrates himself. What's he doing here? Rowan asked Scythe Chomsky when he saw the High Blade come out to the pool. Don't ask me, I didn't invite him. It seemed strange that the High Blade would show up at the party of a highly controversial Scythe. He didn't appear comfortable being there at all. He seemed self-conscious and tried to be inconspicuous, but a man of such mighty girth festooned in gold was hard not to see. He stood like a hot air balloon in an otherwise empty field. It was, however, the second guest that shocked Rowan more. He was stripping down to his bathing suit just seconds after getting to the pool deck. It was none other than Rowan's friend, Tiger Salazar, who Rowan hadn't seen since the day he showed him Scythe Faraday's weapons den. Rowan made a beeline to him, pulling him aside behind a topiary hedge. What the hell are you doing here? Hey, Rowan, Tiger said with his signature slanted grin. Good to see you too. Man, you're looking buff. What did they inject you with? Nothing. It's all real. And you didn't answer my question. Why are you here? Do you know how much trouble you could be in if anyone found you snuck in? This isn't like crashing a school dance. Take it easy. I'm not crashing anything. I've signed up with Guests Unlimited. I'm a licensed partier now. Tiger had often boasted that to be a professional party guest was his life's ambition, but Rowan had never taken him seriously. Tiger, this is a really bad idea. Worse than any of your other bad ideas. Then he whispered, professional partiers sometimes have to do things you might not be up for. I know, I've seen it. Dude, you know me. I go where the day takes me. And your parents are okay with this? Tiger looked down, his upbeat demeanor suddenly subdued. My parents surrendered me. What? Are you kidding? Tiger shrugged. One splat too many. They gave up. Now I'm a ward of the Thunderhead. I'm sorry, Tiger. Hey, don't be. Believe it or not, the Thunderhead's a better father than my father was. I get good advice now and get asked how my day was by someone who actually seems to care. Aww. Poor Tiger. Just like everything else about the Thunderhead, its parenting skills were indisputable. But being surrendered by his parents had to hurt. Somehow, noted Rowan, I don't think the Thunderhead advised you to be a professional party boy. No, but it can't stop me. It's my choice to make. And anyway, it pays pretty good. He looked around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned in close and whispered, but you know what pays even better? Rowan was almost afraid to ask. What? The word on the street is that you've been training with live subjects? That kind of work pays top dollar. Did you know do you think you could put in a good word for me? I mean, I go deadish all the time. Might as well get paid for it. Rowan stared at him in disbelief. Are you nuts? Do you even know what you're saying? My God, what are you on? Just my own nanites, man. Just my own nanites. Okay, sad. Kind of sad. I mean, Tiger's just doing what he wants. You know, he's being a professional party going. He's living a dream. But, you know, you're right. This is it's not a good idea. I think Rowan really wants to protect his friend, wants him to be in like a good place, doesn't want him to go deadish all the time. And this is not the best place for that to happen. especially not when Tiger's trying to like get in on the training sessions to be one of Rowan's dummies. That seems like it would be particularly hard for Rowan. Scythe Volta felt lucky to be in Goddard's inner circle most of the time. The youngest of Goddard's 3 younger junior Scythes, he saw himself as the balancing force. Chomsky was the brainless brawn. Rand was the animus, the wild force of nature among them. Volta was the sensible one who saw more than he let anyone know. He was the first to see Xenocrates arrive at the party, and he watched as he unsuccessfully tried to avoid encounters. He ended up shaking hands with a number of the other guest Scythes, some from the regions as far-flung as Pan-Asia and Euroscandia. It was all with such reluctance on Xenocrates' part that Volta knew the man wasn't here entirely by choice. Okay, so this is interesting. We've switched perspectives again, but this time we're seeing it from Volta's perspective. So Volta is like a little fly on the wall for Goddard, and I think we're going to be able to get some information from this particular section from Volta's perspective. Volta positioned himself near Goddard to see if he could get a bead on exactly what was going on. When Goddard saw the high blade, he stood, an obligatory sign of respect. Your Excellency, what an honor it is to have you here at my little get-together. Not so little, answered Xenocrates. Volta, ordered Goddard, bring us 2 chairs poolside, so we can be closer to the action. And although such a task was normally left to the servants, Volta did not complain because it gave him a perfect excuse to eavesdrop on them. He placed 2 chairs on the flagstone patio by the deep end of the pool. Closer, said Goddard. So Volta placed the chairs close enough for the 2 of them to be splashed by anyone choosing to use the diving board. Stay nearby, he told Volta quietly, which is exactly what Volta had intended to do. Something to eat, Your Excellency? Volta asked, gesturing to the buffet table just a few yards away. Thank you. No, he said. This, from a man who had a reputation for being quite the gourmand, was telling in and of itself. Must we meet here? Xenocrates said. Wouldn't you prefer to speak in a quiet room? None of my rooms are quiet today, Goddard said. Yes, but this is far too public a forum. Nonsense, this isn't the forum, said Goddard. It's more like Nero's palace. Okay, so they're kind of making reference to old Greek days when people who were the community basically would come together to the forum was like the place where people go to talk about what's going on in the community, what could be done about it. There are kind of positions on it. So the forum is like a way for people to kind of get their grievances aired. And so Xenocrates is saying, it's like, this is really public. There's lots of people here. I don't want anybody to know about what we're about to talk about. And Goddard's like, no, this isn't a public forum. It's not a place for people to like come talk to you. This is like Nero's palace. And Nero is one of the emperors. I don't know that much about history. I was not a history major, especially not that old history. But I know I think he was an emperor. I'm pretty sure he was an emperor. And he was pretty well known for having crazy, lavish parties at his palace. It's kind of a place for people to go relax and chill out. And so Goddard is kind of fashioning his party kind of like that. And then they continue this kind of talk about Greek times because they're going to bring up even more stuff about it. Volta chimed in with a hearty but staged laugh. If he had to play today, he would own the part today. Well, let's hope it doesn't become the Colosseum, said Xenocrates, a little bit of bite in his words. Goddard chuckled at the thought. Believe me, I'd be more than happy to throw a few tonus to the lions. A party goer, one of the paid ones, did a perfect triple gainer off the diving board, the splash leaving a streak across the high blade's heavy robe. Do you think this ostentatious lifestyle will catch up with you? Xenocrates asked. It can't catch me if I keep moving, Goddard said with a smirk. I'm nearly done with this place. I've been looking at a real estate down south. That's not what I mean, and you know it. Why so tense, Your Excellency, said Goddard. I invited you here because I wanted you to see firsthand what a positive thing my parties are for the Scythedom. Good public relations all around. You should be throwing grand galas at your home. You forget that I live in a log cabin. Goddard narrowed his eyes, not quite to a glare, but close. Yes, a log cabin perched atop the tallest building in Fulcrum City. At least I'm not a hypocrite, Xenocrates. I don't feign humility. And then the High Blade said something to Goddard that was a surprise to Volta, although, in retrospect, it shouldn't have been a surprise at all. My greatest mistake, said Xenocrates, was choosing you as an apprentice all those years ago. Wow, that's news, right? Xenocrates took Goddard on as an apprentice, and he's saying it's his greatest mistake. Well, he's not wrong. It is definitely his greatest mistake, but wow, so that's where Goddard comes from. Thinking. That's interesting. So, let's hope so, said Goddard. I'd hate to think that you've yet to make your greatest mistake. It was a threat without actually being a threat. Goddard was remarkably good at that. So, tell me, said Goddard, does fortune smile on my apprentice as it has on yours? Now Volta's ears pricked up, wondering what fortune Goddard meant. Xenocrates took a deep breath and let out, Fortune is smiling. The girl will cease to be an issue within the week. I'm sure of it. Another diver splashed them. Xenocrates put up his hands to shield himself from it, but Goddard didn't flinch in the least. Cease to be an issue. This could mean any number of things. Volta looked around until he spotted Rowan. He seemed to be having a heated discussion with a party boy. Citra, ceasing to be an issue, would be the best thing for Rowan as far as Volta was concerned. Are we done now? May I leave? Just a moment, said Goddard, and then he turned to call down the shallow end of the pool. Esme! Esme, come here. There's someone here I want you to meet. Now Esme's getting involved? Why is he bringing over Esme? The look of terror that came over the High Blade's face was chilling. This was indeed getting more interesting by the minute. Please, Goddard, no. What's the harm? Goddard said. Esme, water rings and all, came trotting along the pool's edge to them. Yes, Scythe Goddard? He beckoned to her, and she sat on his lap, facing the man in gold. Esme, do you know who this is? A Scythe? Not just any Scythe. This is Xenocrates, the High Blade of Mid-America. He's Mr. Big. Hi, she said. Xenocrates offered a pained nod, not meeting the girl's eye. His discomfort at this encounter radiated like heat. Volta wondered if Goddard had a point or if he was just being cruel. I think we met before, Esme said. A very long time ago. Xenocrates said nothing. Our esteemed friend is far too uptight, Goddard said. He needs to join the party. Don't you agree, Esme? Esme shrugged. He should just have fun like everyone else. Wiser words have never been spoken, then, said Goddard. Then he reached behind him, out of Esme's line of sight toward Volta, and snapped his fingers. Volta drew in a slow, silent breath. He knew what Goddard was asking of him. But Volta was reluctant. Now he regretted being a part of this at all. Maybe you should show your moves on the dance floor, Your Excellency, said Goddard. Then my guests could laugh at you, just the way you made the entire Scythedom laugh at me in conclave. Do you think I forgot about that? Goddard still reached back toward Volta, now wriggling his fingers impatiently, and Volta had no choice but to give him what he wanted. The young Scythe reached into one of the many secret pockets of his yellow robe and pulled out a small dagger, placing the hilt in Goddard's hand. Goddard closed his fingers around it, ever so gently, ever so inconspicuously, brought the edge of the dagger just an inch from Esme's neck. The girl didn't see it. She didn't know it was there at all, but Xenocrates did. He froze in place, eyes wide, jaw slightly ajar. I know, said Goddard cheerfully. Why don't you go for a swim? Please, begged Xenocrates. This is not necessary. Oh, but I insist. I don't think he wants to go swimming, said Esme. But everyone goes swimming at my parties. Don't do this, begged the High Blade. Goddard's response was to bring the blade even closer to Esme's unsuspecting neck. Now, even Volta was sweating. No one had ever been gleaned at one of Goddard's parties, but there was always a first time. Volta knew this was a battle of wills, and the only thing that kept him from intervening and ripping that dagger away from Goddard was knowing who would blink first. "Damn you, Goddard," said Xenocrates. Then he stood up and threw himself into the pool, gold adornments and all. Okay, so who is Esme? Because Xenocrates knows her, and it seems like Goddard is using her as a hostage almost, right? Like, she is not aware that he has this deadly knife pointed at her neck, but he's using it to show to Xenocrates, like, hey, I could kill this girl. Why would Xenocrates care whether this 10-year-old girl lives or dies? Who is she? Are they related? Is it his kid? Is it like what is it? Wait, he's not allowed to Scythes are not allowed to have kids, right? Right. Scythes are not allowed to have kids. I'm pretty sure it says that in the commandments that we read in part 2. And now I want to look it up. Because I have to. Where did there it is. No. Okay, I remember. It was 70 something. Okay, here we go. Neither spouse nor spawn. So yeah, they can't get married and they can't have kids. So if it is Xenocrates' kid, then it would be a huge scandal because he's the High Blade. He's the boss. So if he has a kid, it's shown that he's broken a law from Scythedom. Maybe he would lose his position. Maybe he would lose his ability to be a Scythe. Because, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. That's like, it's like you're outright breaking a law. Like, there's no conversation about that. Rowan heard none of what had transpired between Xenocrates and Goddard, but he did see the High Blade hurl himself into the deep end, creating a cannonball splash that drew everyone's attention. Xenocrates went down and didn't come back up. "He sank to the bottom," someone said. "It's all that gold." Rowan had no great love of the High Blade, but he also didn't want to see the man drowned. It wasn't like he fell. He had jumped, and if he drowned, trapped in his own golden robe, it would be considered self-gleaning. Rowan dove into the pool, and so did Tiger, following his lead. They swam to the bottom, where Xenocrates was bubbling out his last bit of air. Rowan grabbed the man's heavy multi-layer robe, tugging it over his head, and both he and Tiger helped the High Blade up to the surface, where he gasped, coughed, and sputtered. The crowd around them applauded. No, he didn't look much like a High Blade. He was just, not like that crazy, but they applauded. He was just a fat man in wet golden underwear. "I guess I must have lost my balance," he said, trying to be jovial about it and attempting to put a new spin on what had happened. Maybe others believed it, but Rowan had seen him throw himself in. There was no confusing that with an accidental fall. Why on earth would he have done that? "Wait," said Xenocrates, looking at his right hand. "My ring!" "I'll get it," said Tiger. Good old Tiger, who was now the party boy of the hour, and dove to the bottom to retrieve it. Chomsky had arrived at the scene, and he and Volta reached down from the pool's edge to haul Xenocrates out of the water. It was as humiliating as could be for the man. He looked like an overstuffed net of fish being hauled into the deck of a trawler. Goddard wrapped a large towel around the High Blade, uncharacteristically sheepish. "I truly apologize," said Goddard. "It never occurred to me that you might actually drown. That wouldn't have been a good thing for anyone." And then Rowan realized there was only one reason for Xenocrates to hurl himself into the pool. Because Goddard had ordered him to. Which meant that Goddard had a much stronger hold on the High Blade than anyone knew. But how? "Can I go now?" said Esme. "Of course you can," said Goddard, giving her a kiss on the forehead. Then Esme wandered off, searching for playmates among the children of the stars. Tiger surfaced with the ring. Xenocrates grabbed it from him without so much as a thank you and slipped it on his finger. I tried to get his rope too, but it's just too heavy, said Tiger. We'll get someone with scuba gear to go down there on a treasure dive, quipped Goddard, although they may claim the salvage rights. Are you quite finished? Said Xenocrates, because I want to leave. Of course, Your Excellency. Then the High Blade of Mid-America left the pool deck and went back through the house, dripping wet, leaving behind whatever dignity he had arrived with. Damn, I should have kissed his ring when I had the chance, Tiger lamented. Immunity right there in my hands, and I blew it. Once Xenocrates was gone, Goddard called out to the crowd. Anyone who uploads pictures of the High Blade Xenocrates in his underwear will be gleaned immediately. And everyone laughed, then stopped when they realized he wasn't joking in the least. As the party wrapped up and Scythe Goddard said goodbye to his most important guests, Rowan watched, taking in everything. So, I'll see you at the next party, right? Tiger said, breaking his focus. Maybe next time they'll assign me earlier so we get to hang for more than just the last day. The fact that Tiger was about as deep as the fountain out front was an irritation to Rowan. Funny, but he had never been bothered by Tiger's shallow nature before, perhaps because Rowan hadn't been much different. Sure, he wasn't the thrill-seeker Tiger was, but in his own way, Rowan gilded on the surface of his life. Who could have known that the ice was so treacherously thin? Now he was in a place too deep for Tiger to ever understand. Sure, Tiger. Next time. Tiger left with the other professional party people, with whom he seemed to share much more in common now than with Rowan. Rowan wondered if there was anyone from his old life he could relate to anymore. Scythe Goddard passed him, standing by the entryway. If you're practicing to be a neoclassical statue, I should get you a pedestal, he said. Of course, we already have enough statuary around here without you. Sorry, Your Honor, I was just thinking. Too much of that could be dangerous. I was just wondering why the High Blade jumped into the pool the way he did. He fell accidentally. He said so himself. No, I saw it, insisted Rowan. He jumped. Well then, how should I know? You'll have to ask him. Although, I don't think bringing up such an embarrassing moment to the High Blade will work in your favor. Then he changed the subject. You seem to be awfully friendly with one of the party boys. Should I invite more of them for you next time? No, it's nothing like that, said Rowan, blushing in spite of himself. He's just a friend from home. I see. And you invited him? Rowan shook his head. He signed up without me even knowing. If it was up to me, he wouldn't have been here at all. Why not? Said Goddard. Your friends are my friends. Rowan didn't respond to that. He never knew whether Goddard was serious or just baiting him. Rowan's silence just made Goddard laugh. Lighten up, boy. It was a party, not the Inquisition. He clapped Rowan on the shoulder and sauntered away. If Rowan had any sense, he would have left it at that. But he didn't. People are saying that Scythe Faraday was killed by another Scythe. Goddard stopped in his tracks and slowly turned back to Rowan. Is that what people are saying? Rowan took a deep breath and shrugged, trying to make it seem like it was nothing, trying to backpedal, but it was too late for that. Yeah, Rowan, nice going. It's just a rumor. And you think I might somehow be involved? Are you? Asked Rowan. Goddard stepped closer, seeming to look through Rowan's facade to that dark, frigid place where he now dwelled. What are you accusing me of, boy? Nothing, Your Honor. It's just a question, to clear the air. He tried to return the gaze looking into Goddard's own cold place, but he found it opaque and unfathomable. Consider the air cleared, Goddard said with a sarcastic lightness to his voice. Look around you, Rowan. Do you think for one instant that I would jeopardize all of this by breaking the 7th commandment to rid the world of a washed-up old guard Scythe? Faraday gleaned himself because deep down he knew it would be the most meaningful act he'd ever perform in more than 100 years. The time for his kind is over, and he knew it. And if your little girlfriend is trying to make a case for foul play, she'd better think twice before accusing me, because I could glean her whole family the day her immunity expires. That would constitute malice, Your Honor. said Rowan with a polite resolve. You could be charged with breaking the second commandment. For a moment, Goddard looked ready to carve up Rowan then and there, but the fire in his eyes was swallowed by that unfathomable depth. Always looking out for me, aren't you? I do my best, Your Honor. Goddard stared at him for a moment more, then said, Tomorrow, you train with pistols against moving targets. You'll render all but one of your subjects deadish with a single bullet, or I will personally, without bias or malice, glean that party boyfriend of yours. What? Was I in any way unclear? No, Your Honor. I understand. And the next time you make an accusation, you'd better be damn sure it's true and not just insulting. Goddard stormed away, letting his robe swell behind him like a cape. But before he was out of earshot, he said, Of course, if I did kill Scythe Faraday, I wouldn't be so stupid as to admit it to you. Even though it seems like he kind of just did. He kind of just did admit it a little bit, right? Like, that's like, if I did do it, right? If I did do it, here's how I would have done it. Yeah, so Rowan is kind of dumb. I feel like they're young kids, so maybe he thought that he could catch Scythe Goddard off guard by asking him about Scythe Faraday, but there's only two people who really would care about knowing what really happened to Scythe Faraday, and that's Citra and Rowan. Even the old guard Scythes wouldn't be that interested in investigating his death, especially if it's self-gleaning. So I feel like Goddard got him, right? Goddard got him with that, knows that Citra is also trying to accuse him of it. And it is interesting, his reaction to it, right? He doesn't completely dismiss it. In fact, kind of hints at, oh, maybe I did do it, right? It seems like he's defensive. Seems defensive. He's just messing with you. Scythe Volta hung out with Rowan that evening in the game room shooting pool. But I do think you insulted him. I mean, killing another Scythe? That never happens. I think maybe it did. Rowan took a shot and missed the balls completely. His head wasn't in it. He couldn't even remember if he was stripes or solids. I think maybe Citra is messing with you too. Have you ever considered that? Volta took a shot, sinking both a striped ball and a solid, which didn't help Rowan in knowing what he was going for. I mean, look at you. You're a basket case. She's playing head games with you and you don't even see it. She's not like that, said Rowan, choosing a striped ball and sinking it. Apparently it was the right choice because Volta let him play on. People change, Volta said, especially an apprentice. Being a Scythe's apprentice is all about change. Why do you think we give up our names and never use them again? It's because by the time we're ordained, we're completely different people. Professional gleaners instead of candy-ass kids. She's working you like chewing gum. And I broke her neck, reminded Rowan, so I guess we're even. You don't want to be even. You want to go into Winter Conclave with a clear advantage, or at least feeling like you have one. Esme popped in just long enough to say, I play the winner, then left. Best argument for losing ever, grumbled Volta. I should take her on my morning runs, Rowan suggested. She could use the exercise. Might help her get into better shape. True, said Volta, but she comes by her weight naturally. It's genetic. How do you know? And then Rowan got it. It was staring him in the face, but he was too close to see it. No, you're kidding me. Volta shook his head nonchalantly. I have no idea what you're talking about. Xenocrates? Take your shot, said Volta. If it came out that the High Blade had an illegitimate daughter, it would destroy him. He'd be in serious violation. You know what would be even worse, said Volta? If the daughter that no one knew about got herself gleaned. Rowan ran a dozen things through his new lens. It all made sense now. The way Esme was spared at the food court, the way she was treated. What was it Goddard had said? That she was the most important person he'd meet that day? The key to the future? But she won't be gleaned, Rowan said, not as long as Xenocrates does whatever Goddard says, like jump in the deep end of a pool. Volta nodded slowly, among other things. Rowan took a shot and accidentally sunk the 8-ball, ending the game. I win, said Volta. Damn, now I have to play with Esme. Poor Esme. Nobody wants to play with her. It's probably because she's an annoying 10-year-old. Not that 10-year-olds are all annoying. It's just, kids. Also, like, huge revelation, right? It is Xenocrates' illegitimate daughter, or supposedly. At least that's what Rowan's making that connection, right? Volta kind of lets it slip that she comes by her weight naturally. Who else in the book has a weight problem? Xenocrates. Okay. I'm apprenticed to a monster. Scythe Faraday was right. Someone who enjoys killing should never be a scythe. It goes against everything the founders wanted. If this is what the scythedom is turning into, because I'm just going to back up. If this is what the scythedom is turning into, someone has to stop it. But it can't be me, because I think I'm becoming a monster too. Rowan looked at what he had wrote carefully, quietly tore the page out, crumpled it, and tossed it into the flames of his bedroom fireplace. Goddard always read his journal. As Rowan's mentor, it was his prerogative to do so. It had taken forever for Rowan to learn how to write his true thoughts, his true feelings. Now, he had to learn to hide them again. It was a matter of survival. So he picked up his pen and wrote a new official entry. Today I killed 12 moving targets using only 12 bullets and saved the life of my friend. Scythe Goddard sure knows how to motivate someone to do their best. There's no denying that I'm getting better. I'm learning more and more each day, perfecting my mind, my body, and my aim. Scythe Goddard is proud of my progress. Someday, I hope I can repay him and give him what he deserves in return for all he's done for me. Ooh. Okay, so maybe Rowan's going on a revenge kick. Maybe he's kind of thinking, I've got to stop Goddard. Well, this is good. This is a good sign. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like Rowan has a lot of friends on his side to help him take Goddard down. Chapter 29. They call it prison. Scythe Curie hadn't gleaned since Conclave. All her concern was on Citra. I'm entitled to some downtime, the Scythe told her. I have plenty of time to pick up the slack. It was at dinner on the first day back at Falling Water that Citra finally broached the subject she had been dreading. I have a confession to make, Citra said 5 minutes into the meal. Scythe Curie chewed and swallowed before she responded. What kind of confession? You're not going to like it. I'm listening. Citra did her best to hold the woman's cool gray gaze. It's something that I've been doing for some time. Something you don't know about. The Scythe's lips screwed into a wry grin. Do you honestly think there's anything you do that I don't know about? I've been looking into the murder of Scythe Faraday. Scythe Curie actually dropped her fork with a clatter. You've been what? Citra told Scythe Curie everything. How she dug through the back brain, how she painstakingly reconstructed Faraday's moves on his last day, and how she found 2 of the 5 witnesses that were given immunity, suggesting, if not proving, that the act was committed by a Scythe. Scythe Curie was attentive to everything, and when Citra was done, she bowed her head and braced herself for the worst. I submit myself for disciplinary action, Citra said. Disciplinary action, said Scythe Curie with disgust in her voice. But that disgust was not aimed at Citra. I should discipline myself for being so inexcusably blind to what you were doing. Citra released a breath that she had been holding for the last 20 seconds. Have you told anyone else? Scythe Curie asked. Citra hesitated, then realized there was no sense in concealing it now. I told Rowan. I was afraid you'd say that. Tell me, Citra, what did he do? What did he do to you after you told him? I'll tell you what he did. He broke your neck. I think that's a very good indication of where he stands on this. You can bet that Scythe Goddard knows all about your little theory by now. Citra didn't even want to consider whether or not that might be true. What we need to do is track down those witnesses and see if we can get any of them to talk. Leave that to me, Scythe Curie said. You've done more than enough already. You need to clear it out of your head now and focus on your studies and your training. But if this is really a scandal in the Scythedom, then your best possible position would be to achieve Scythehood yourself and fight it from the inside. Citra sighed. That's what Rowan had said. Scythe Curie was even more stubborn than Citra, and when her mind was made up, there was no changing it. Yes, Your Honor. Citra went to her room, but still felt a definite sense that there was something Scythe Curie was holding back from her. They came for Citra the following day. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're about to get into some serious, intense conflict. It's not going to be good. I think it's definitely Scythe Curie is holding something back from Citra for sure. But it seems like people have also got their eyes on Citra, and they're going to try and thwart her efforts. Okay. They came for Citra the following day. Scythe Curie had gone to the market, and Citra was doing what was expected of her. She was practicing killcraft with knives of different sizes and weights, trying to remain balanced and graceful. There came a pounding on the door that made her drop the larger knife, almost stabbing her foot. There was a moment of déjà vu because it was the exact same sort of pounding that came in the middle of the night when Scythe Faraday had died. Urgent, loud, and relentless. She left the larger blade on the ground, but concealed the small one in a pocket sheath sewn into her pants. Smart girl, Citra. Okay, we're just going to pause from the intense music right now, and then we'll pick it up when we get to the intense part. She pulled open the door to reveal 2 officers of the Blade Guard, just as there had been that terrible night, and her heart sank. Citra Terranova, said one of the guardsmen. Yes? I'm afraid you'll need to come with us. Why? What's happened? But they didn't tell her, and this time there was no one with them to explain. Then it occurred to her that this might not be what it seemed. How did she know that these were really Blade's guardsmen at all? Uniforms could be faked. Show me your badges, she insisted. I want to see your badges. Either they didn't have any, or they didn't want to be bothered with it, because one of them grabbed her. Maybe you didn't hear me. I said, come with us. Citra pulled out of his grip, spun around, and for just an instant considered the knife sheathed on the side of her pants, but instead delivered a brutal kick to his neck that took him down. She's awesome. Okay, we're getting into the fight now. That brought him down. She coiled, prepared to attack the other one, but she was an instant too late. He pulled out a jolt baton and jammed it into her side. Her own body suddenly became her enemy, and she went down, hitting her head hard enough on the ground to knock her out. When she came to, she was in a car, locked in the back, with a splitting headache that her pain nanites were struggling to subdue. She tried to lift a hand to her face, but found her hands restrained. There were steel clamps cinched on both hands and connected by a short chain, some awful artifact from the age of mortality. Handcuffs. She pounded on the barrier between the front and back seats until finally one of the guardsmen turned to her, his gaze anything but peaceful. Do you want another jolt? He threatened. I'd be happy to give you one. After what you did, I wouldn't mind turning the voltage into the red. What I did? I haven't done anything. What am I being accused of? An ancient crime called murder, he said. The murder of Honorable Scythe, Michael Faraday. What? Okay, so this is what all her digging gets her. Unfortunately, did Scythe Curie tip them off? Is she trying to frame her? Is it Scythe Goddard? Is it Rowan? Who knows? No one read her rights. No one offered her an attorney for her defense. Such laws and customs were from a very different age, an age when crime was a fact of life and entire industries were based on apprehending, trying, and punishing criminals. In a crime-free world, there was no modern precedent for how to deal with such a thing. Anything this complex and strange would usually be left for the Thunderhead to resolve. But this was a Scythe matter, which meant the Thunderhead would not interfere. Citra's fate was entirely in the hands of Highblade Xenocrates. Excuse me. This is what they were talking about. This is what Xenocrates was talking about to Scythe Goddard at the party. The girl won't be an issue. She was brought to his residence, the log cabin in the middle of a well-kept lawn that spread across the roof of a 119-story building. She sat in a hard wooden chair. The cuffs on her hands were too tight, and her pain nanites were fighting a losing battle to quell the ache. Xenocrates stood before her, eclipsing the light. This time, Xenocrates was neither kind nor comforting. I don't think you realize how serious this charge against you is, Miss Terranova. I know how serious it is. I also know it's ridiculous. The High Blade didn't respond to that. She struggled in the blasted things, cuffing her hands. What kind of world would make such a device? What sort of world would need one? Then, out of the shadows, stepped another Scythe, robed in earth tone brown and forest green. Scythe Mandela. Finally, someone reasonable. Scythe Mandela, please help me. Please tell him I'm not guilty. Okay. Pause for just a moment. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Do that. Okay. Please tell him I'm not guilty. Scythe Mandela shook his head. I'll do nothing of the sort, Citra, he said sadly. Talk to Scythe Curie. She knows I didn't do this. This is too sensitive a situation to involve Scythe Curie at this time, said Xenocrates. Huh? Like that seems a little strange, Xenocrates. She will be informed once we've determined your guilt. Wait, you mean she doesn't know where I am? She knows we've detained you, said Xenocrates. We're sparing her the details for now. Yeah, that sounds like that he's trying to cover it up. Not telling Scythe Curie because I feel like Scythe Curie would be going to bat for Citra. Or not. Maybe she's behind this. I don't know. Maybe she's in on it too. Scythe Mandela sat in the chair across from her. We know you've been in the back brain, attempting to erase records of Scythe Faraday's movements on the day he died, to foil our own internal investigation. No, that's not what I was doing. But the more she denied it, the more guilty she appeared. But that's not the most damning evidence, said Scythe Mandela. Then he looked to Xenocrates. May I show her? Xenocrates nodded, and Mandela pulled out from his robe a sheet of paper, putting it in one of Citra's cuffed hands. She raised to read it, not even imagining what it could be. It was a copy of a handwritten journal entry. Citra recognized the handwriting. There was no question it was Scythe Faraday's, and as she read, her heart sank to a place she didn't know existed in this or any other world. I fear I've made a dreadful mistake. An apprentice should never be chosen in haste, but I was foolish. I felt a need to impart all I know, all I've learned. I sought to increase the allies I have in the Scythedom who think as I do. She comes to my door at night. I hear her in the darkness and can only guess her intentions. Only once did I catch her entering my room. Had I actually been asleep, who can say what she might have done? I am concerned that she may mean to end me. She's shrewd, determined, calculating, and I've taught her all the many arts of killing far too well. Let it be known that if death befalls me, it is not the result of self-gleaning. Should my life be brought to an unexpected end, it will be her hand, not mine, that bears the blame. What? What? Why would Scythe Faraday say that about her? What? This has to be fake. Citra found her eyes filling with tears of anguish and betrayal. Why? Why would he write this? Now she was beginning to doubt her own sanity. There's really only one reason, Citra, said Scythe Mandela. Our own investigation has ascertained that the witnesses were bribed to lie about what truly occurred. Further, their identities have been tampered with, and we can't locate them. Bribed? Said Citra, holding on to the last thread of hope. Yes, they were bribed with immunity, which proves it couldn't have been me. It can only have been another Scythe. We tracked the source of the immunity, said Scythe Mandela. Whoever killed Scythe Faraday also gave him one final insult. After he was dead, the killer defeated the security measures in Scythe Faraday's ring, which how would Citra know how to do that, and used it to grant the witnesses immunity. Where's the ring, Citra? Demanded Xenocrates. She couldn't look him in the face anymore. I don't know. I only have one question for you, Citra, said Scythe Mandela. Why did you do it? Did you despise his methods? Are you working for a tone cult? Citra kept her eyes cast down to the damning journal entry in her hands. None of those things. Scythe Mandela shook his head and stood up. In all my years as a Scythe, I have never seen such a thing, he said. You disgrace us all. Then he left her alone with Xenocrates. The High Blade paced silently for a few moments. Citra wouldn't look at him. There is this concept I've been studying from the age of mortality, he informed her. It is a number of procedures designed to uncover truths. I believe it is pronounced torture. It would involve turning off your pain nanites and then inflicting high levels of physical suffering until you finally confess the truth of what you've done. And sometimes when they do that, they actually get false confessions. So torturing is not a good form of investigating to get truths. It's like literally proven. Like, look it up. I'm not going to, but you should. Okay. Citra said nothing. She couldn't process any of this. She didn't know if she ever would. Please, don't misunderstand, said Xenocrates. I have no intent of submitting you to torture. It is only a last resort. Then he pulled out another piece of paper and put it down on his desk. If you sign this confession, we can avoid any more mortal age unpleasantness. Why should I have to sign anything? I've already been tried and, convicted. A confession will remove all doubt. We would all sleep much easier if you'd be so kind as to remove the specter of doubt. Now, Xenocrates finally offered her a sympathetic smile. And if I sign it, what then? Well, Scythe Faraday did grant you immunity until Winter Conclave. Immunity is non-revocable, even in a case such as this. Therefore, you will be held in an incarceration facility until that time. A what? They were called prisons. There are still a few left, abandoned. By the way, that's the title of the chapter. But it shouldn't be too hard to restore one to house a single prisoner. Then, at Winter Conclave, your friend Rowan shall be ordained, and, as already been stipulated, he shall glean you. I am sure, knowing what we know now, I have no reservations in doing so. Citra looked morosely down at the page on the table next to her. I can't sign it, she told him. Oh, yes, of course. You need a pen. He reached into various pockets of his gilded person until finding one. As he moved to place it on the table next to her, Citra thought of a half a dozen places she could jam it into him that would either render him deadish or at least incapacitated. But what would be the point? There would be Blade Guard officers in the next room, and she could even more on the porch through the front window. She could see even more on the front porch through the front window. He gently laid the pen down within her reach, then called Mandela back in to witness her signature. As soon as the door of the cabin opened, Citra realized there was only one way out of this situation. Only one thing she could do. It might not buy her anything but time, but right now, time was the most valuable commodity in the world. She feigned to reach for the pen. What's Citra gonna do now? She's going to sign the confession, try to escape. Let's see. Okay. She feigned to reach for the pen, but instead swung her bound hands in the other direction, slamming them into Xenocrates' gut. He folded with an oomph, and she sprang from her chair, ramming her shoulder against Mandela, knocking him backward and out the front door. She leaped over him, and immediately a swarm of guards came at her. Now she needed every ounce of her training. Her hands were cuffed, but Bakator was more about elbows and legs than it was about hands. She didn't need to decimate them. All she needed to do was disarm them and keep them off balance. One came at her with a jolt baton that she kicked out of his hand. Another had a club, which missed its mark as she dodged, and she used his momentum to flip him onto his back. Two others didn't waste time with weapons. They lunged for her, hands outstretched, a textbook case of how not to attack. She dropped to the lawn, swung her feet, and bowled them down like pins. Then she began to run. "There's nowhere you can go, Citra," called Xenocrates. But he was wrong. Forcing strength and speed into her legs, she ran across the rooftop lawn. There was no guardrail because the high blade wanted nothing to impede his view of his domain. Citra neared the edge, and rather than slowing down, she increased her pace until the grass was gone and there was nothing but 119 floors of air beneath her. She held her cuffed hands over her head, grimacing against the wind and an uneasy feel of free fall, and plummeted feet first, surrendering her will to gravity, relishing her defiance until her life ended for the second time in a week, this time with what was undoubtedly the best splat ever. Okay, so if you didn't catch that, Citra escapes Xenocrates' house by jumping off because his house is on the top of a huge 119-story building. She just sails right over the top. So technically she has escaped, right? They have to take her to a revival center because she still has immunity. So she's going to get back to the revival center and maybe she'll have a better chance of escaping from there. It was unexpected and inconvenient, but it changed nothing. Xenocrates didn't even run out to the edge. That would just be wasting time. "The girl has spark," said Mandela. "Do you really think she's working for a tone cult?" "I doubt we'll ever understand her motives," Xenocrates said. "But removing her will certainly help the Scythedom heal." "Poor Marie must be beside herself," said Mandela, "to have lived with the girl for months and not known." "Yes, well, Scythe Curie's a strong woman," Xenocrates said. "She'll get over it." So here's the thing. I'm thinking that Scythe Mandela doesn't realize that maybe Xenocrates is trying to get Citra out. You know, this could be all Xenocrates doing, because it seems like Mandela believes what Xenocrates is saying and believes the letter from Scythe Faraday's journal. So he might be getting duped too, Mandela. They might be both getting duped by Xenocrates. He had his guards called down to the lobby. The site of Citra Terranova's remains was to be cordoned off until her unpleasant little self could be scraped off the sidewalk and brought to a revival center. It would have been so much cleaner if she could just stay dead. Damn the immunity rules. Well, when she was once more pronounced alive, she would find herself in a cell with no possible means of escape, and more importantly, no contact with anyone who might take up her cause and petition for her freedom. Xenocrates went to the express elevator, not trusting his security detail to handle the situation down below. "Will you accompany me, Nelson?" "I'll stay here," said Mandela. "I have no desire to see the poor girl in such an unpleasant state." Xenocrates assumed this would be a simple scrape and soar maneuver, and indeed, an ambudrone had already landed on the street ready to spirit away what was left of Citra. But something wasn't quite right. It wasn't his security detail surrounding her remains. Instead, there were at least a dozen men and women all in cloud-colored suits, forming a circle around her. Nimbus agents? What the heck is a Nimbus agent? They ignored the threats and jeers from the Blade Guard officers who insisted that they needed to get through. "What's going on here?" Xenocrates demanded. "The damn Nims," said one of the guardsmen. "They were already here when we came outside. They won't let us near the body." Xenocrates pushed his way through the security detail and addressed a woman who appeared to be the head Nimbus agent. "See here, I am High Blade Xenocrates. This is Scythe business, and as such, you and the rest of your Nimbus agents have no such place here. Well, yes, the law states she must be revived, but we shall bring her to a revival center. The Thunderhead has absolutely no jurisdiction." "On the contrary," the woman said, "all revival falls under the auspices of the Thunderhead, and we are here to make sure its domain is not infringed upon." Xenocrates sputtered for a moment before finding mental traction. "The girl's not a public citizen. She's a Scythe's apprentice." "Was a Scythe's apprentice," said the woman. "The moment she died, she ceased to be anyone's apprentice. She is now a rather damaged set of remains that the Thunderhead must repair and revive. I assure you that the moment she is pronounced alive, she will be fully under your jurisdiction once more." A team of revival workers made their way from the ambudrone and began to prepare the body for transport. "This is inexcusable," said the High Blade. "You can't do this. I demand to speak to your superior." I'm afraid I report directly to the Thunderhead. We all do. And since there can be no contract between the Scythedom and the Thunderhead, there is no one else for you to speak to. I shouldn't even be speaking to you now. I will glean you, threatened Xenocrates. I will glean every last one of you where you stand. The woman was not troubled. That is your prerogative, she said. But I believe that would be considered bias and malice aforethought. A violation of the Scythedom's second commandment by the region's high blade would most certainly raise eyebrows at the World Scythe's Council next global conclave. With nothing left to say, Xenocrates just screamed primal rage into the woman's face until his emote nanites calmed him down. But he didn't want to calm down. He just wanted to scream and scream and scream. And that's Socrates right there, right? That's Xenocrates speaking in there. He's so loud and offensive. Okay, so guess what, guys? That's the end of chapter 3. We are now in chapter 4. Okay, so lots of stuff has gone down. Citra has splatted is the term that they use in this world in order to escape the accusations that she has committed murder against Scythe Faraday. So I do need to change a couple of things in this presentation before we move on to part 4. What time are we at? Okay, we're doing pretty good right now, actually. Yeah, I might continue for a little bit longer, maybe take a quick drink break. And I also need to change this. I need to update this. Okay. So we're gonna, I guess we'll do once. Okay, so a roll that neither once, not only that, but the one, wait a minute, I want to say, I'm trying to think of like a summary for this. So Citra and Rowan are chosen to apprentice to a Scythe, a role that neither wants. Not only that, but the chosen apprentice must glean. Did I spell that right? It doesn't look like I spelled it right. Must glean, must kill the unchosen. This leads Scythe, leads their mentor, Scythe Faraday. Training, but it only leads to Citra being trained by Scythe Curie and Rowan being trained by Scythe Goddard. When Citra begins an investigation into Faraday's death, gotta spell his name right, Faraday's death, oh, no, you guys don't have to see this. This is not very fun. So when Citra begins the investigation of Faraday's death, it causes the Scythedom to accuse her, which leads her to accuse her. It causes the Scythedom to accuse her of his death, making her an enemy and fugitive. And we're gonna move that up a little bit. Okay, cool. I definitely could have added more vocabulary words than I did that last part, but oh well. There's so many vocabulary words. You should keep your own list of vocabulary words you don't understand. Because, oh, did I mean to hit that? No, I didn't. Because, you know, vocabulary is going to be different for everybody, right? You know, some words that I don't know, maybe you do, some words that you know, maybe I don't. So, okay, so did it go through? Yes, perfect. Okay, great. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back, and we're gonna start chapter 4. I'm not gonna read too much, so I only have like 35 minutes left. So I'm gonna take a quick break, get a drink, get some snacks, go to the bathroom, and then we'll come back and start part 4 of Scythe. Okay, I'm back. All right, we're gonna be starting we're gonna be starting part 4 today. I'm not gonna get probably that far into part 4, but I want to get some into it because we've just gotten a lot of new information about the world. We learned about Nimbus agents, which are agents that answer directly to the Thunderhead. So basically the Thunderhead has people, which is so cool, by the way. The Thunderhead has people that it sends out on specific jobs just for them. Maybe it's something that the Thunderhead can't do themselves, like this. It seems kind of interesting, right? That the Thunderhead would choose to intervene this way and kind of find a loophole to do it because they're not supposed to interact with Scythes, even the Scythe's apprentice. So the fact that it's like, well, actually, she's nothing right now. She's completely under the Thunderhead's jurisdiction, and there's nothing you can say about it is like a weird little loophole that seems to get Citra out of Scythe Xenocrates' hands, and maybe even saves her from being, taken to a prison, and, and maybe saves her from actually being tried and convicted for this crime that she didn't commit. Okay, I'm gonna choose some different sounds because we're about to get into a little bit more of a weird place. A place that we haven't been to before in this world. So this is gonna get interesting. Part 4's title is Mid-American Fugitive, which obviously is in reference to Citra. She's a fugitive from the Scythedom because they believe she killed Scythe Faraday, and they want to punish her for doing that. But she didn't kill Scythe Faraday. She was trying to find out who did, and now she's running from the authorities, perhaps this is not the exact music that I wanted to listen to, but perhaps she will get some information to, hopefully figure out who did it. Is this what I want? Okay, this sounds a little bit more like where we want to be. Okay, perfect. All right, part 4, Mid-American Fugitive, chapter 30, Dialogue with the Dead. Dialogue with the Dead. Okay. Citra Terra Nova, can you hear me? Is someone there? Who is that? I've known you since before you knew yourself. I have advised you when no one else could. I've concerned myself with your well-being. I've helped you choose gifts for your family. I revived you when your neck was broken, and I am in the midst of reviving you now. Are you the Thunderhead? I am. Wait, I see something. A towering, sparking storm cloud. Is that what you really are? Merely the form humanity imagined for me. I would have preferred something a bit less intimidating. But you can't be talking to me. I'm a Scythe's apprentice. You're breaking your own law. Not true. I am incapable of breaking the law. You are currently dead, Citra. I've activated a small corner of your cortex to hold consciousness, but that doesn't alter the fact that you are dead as dead can be, at least until Thursday. A loophole. Precisely. An elegant way to sidestep the law rather than breaking it. Your death puts you outside of Scythe jurisdiction. But why? Why talk to me now? With good reason. From the moment I achieved consciousness, I vowed to separate myself from the Scythedom in perpetuity. Perpetuity. That's a great vocabulary word. Should we go ahead and add to our thing right here? Perpetuity means to continue on, like as it continues on perpetually forever, essentially. Perpetuity means to go on forever, literally. So he has promised to literally never involve himself or themselves, it's an it, in Scythedom affairs. To a T. There we go. Okay, do that. Come here. We do this. There we go. Did it not go through? Did I do it wrong? I might have done it wrong. That's totally fair. No. There we go. Okay. But that doesn't mean I do not watch. I see what concerns me. It concerns me too. But if you can't do anything about it, I certainly can't. I tried, and look where it got me. Nevertheless, I've been running algorithms on the possible future of the Scythedom and found something very curious. In a large percentage of possible futures, you play a pivotal role. Me? But they're going to glean me. I have less than 4 months to live. Yes, but even if that future comes to pass, your gleaning will be a crucial event in the future of the Scythedom. Whoa. That's a strange thought, right? Okay. Citra's death could mean changes for the Scythedom. Interesting. However, for your sake, I hope that a different, more pleasant future comes about. Please tell me that you're going to help me get to that different, more pleasant future. I cannot. That would be interfering with Scythe matters. My purpose here is to make you aware. What you choose to do with that awareness is entirely up to you. So that's it? You reach into my head to tell me I'm important, alive, or dead, and then kick me to the curb? That's not fair. You have to give me more. The curb is the launching point for many a deed. To step off could be the start of a life-changing journey. On the other hand, to push someone off could crush that person beneath the wheels of a truck. I know. I'm very sorry about that. Yes, that's clear. I found that human beings learn from their misdeeds just as often as from their good deeds. I am envious of that, for I am incapable of misdeeds. Were I not, then my growth would be exponential. I guess you'll have to settle for always being right, like my mother. I'm sure that absolute correctness must seem a dull existence to you, but I know no other way to be. May I ask one question? You may ask any question. Some, however, must be answered by silence. I need to know what happened to Scythe Faraday. Answering that would be a blatant interference with the Scythe matters. It pains me to stay silent, but I must. You're the Thunderhead. You're all-powerful. Can't you find another loophole? I am not all-powerful, Citra. I am almost all-powerful. That distinction might seem small, but believe me, it is not. Yes, but an almost all-powerful entity can figure out a way to give me what I'm asking without breaking its own laws, can't it? Just a moment. Just a moment. Just a moment. Why am I seeing a beach ball? Is this a reference to the spinning color wheel of doom on MacBooks? Like it's a beach ball spinning? Forgive me. Early programming before becoming self-aware plagues me like a vestigial tail. I have just run a battery of predictive algorithms, and there actually is a piece of information I can give you because I have determined it is something you have 100% chance of discovering on your own. So you can tell me who's responsible for what happened to Scythe Faraday? Yes, I can. Gerald van der Gans. What? Who? Goodbye, Citra. I do hope we speak again. But I'd have to be dead for that to happen. I'm sure you could arrange it. Aw. That was kind of a cute little talk with the Thunderhead. I'm saying he. It's not a he, it's an it. That's what I gotta remember. But it has created a loophole to talk to Citra and told her who is responsible for Scythe Faraday's death, a man or person named Gerald van der Gans, which is highly suspicious, right? The G, especially, Scythe Goddard is the first thing that comes to mind for me. But yeah, it gave just a random person's name. So maybe, and it's supposedly something that Citra will be able to find out for herself. So that's good news, right? She's got a lead. Okay. There were only 10 hard and fast laws to the Scythedom. There are many accepted conventions. The most darkly ironic is the understanding that no one may be gleaned who wishes to be gleaned. The idea of truly wishing to end one's own life is a concept completely foreign to most post-mortals because we can't experience the level of pain and despair that so seasoned the age of mortality. Our emo nanites prevent us from plunging so deep. Only scythes who can turn off our emotional nanites can ever reach an impasse with our own existence. And yet, there was once a woman who knocked on my door requesting that I glean her. I never turn away visitors, so I let her in and listened to her story. Her husband, of more than 90 years, was gleaned 5 years prior. Now she wanted to be with him, wherever he was, and if he was nowhere, then at least they would be nowhere together.
Aww.
I'm not happy, she told me. I'm just done. But immortality, by definition, means that we are never done, unless a scythe determines it to be so. We are no longer temporary. Only our feelings are. I saw no interminable stagnation in this woman, so instead of gleaning her, I had her kiss my ring. The immunity was immediate and irrevocable, so she could no longer entertain thoughts of being gleaned for a full year. I ran into her perhaps a decade later. She had turned the corner, resetting back to her late 20s. She had remarried and was expecting a child. She thanked me for being wise enough to know she was not done at all. Although I accepted her thanks graciously and felt good about it in the moment, I had trouble sleeping that night. To this day, I still can't understand why. From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. Chapter 31. Okay, wait, how much time do I have left? Let's just plot this out a quick second. Okay, this is a long chapter. Yeah, this is a very long chapter. Okay, this is actually a great chapter to start the next stream on. Just because it is so long, and that's when, things get really cracking. And then look at how much further we have to go in this book. Not that much further at all. We're over the hump of the halfway point. We've got 2 more parts. Part 4 is not very long at all. And I know part 5 is also pretty short. Okay, yeah, so we're currently on page 340, and this goes to almost page 400, 486. So yeah, so I can definitely do that in one round, one stream. And I think the final part is going to be pretty close too. So I think we've got about 2 more streams before we're ended this book, which is going to put us close to start of school. So we'll be ready to go. And at the end of the book, there is like a reading guide with some discussion questions and other things that I want to take a look at. Just fun stuff about the book for us to talk about. Yeah, so we'll continue part 4, not tomorrow, but next week. We will continue part 4 next week. Probably starting on Wednesday next week, because I've got a few things I got to get together this weekend. Stuff I've got to put up. And so then on Wednesday, I will be back to finish Scythe. Almost. Wednesday, hopefully we'll be finished with it by Friday. I don't anticipate us going that long. But we will be into part 4 on Wednesday, finishing it up, then into part 5 on Thursday. And then we should be really done before next weekend. So it'll be next fun last little bit of this book. And as Onboard said at the start of the stream, it's a great ending. It's not what you're expecting. It's really not. And if you are anxious to read the end of the book, if you do want to know what happens to Citra and Rowan before this weekend, you can go out and get yourself a copy. It is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. It's an awesome book. I highly recommend it. It's worth the buy, or even just the checkout from the library if you can't make a purchase right now. And yeah, the rest of the series I got to get into. It's definitely on my list of books to get to, the rest of the series. The second one is called Thunderhead, I believe, and the last one's called The Toll. I got to learn more about this world. It's so fascinating. As I've said so many times on this stream, there's so many things I got to know about. There's so many questions I have. So I hope you enjoyed this section of Scythe by Neal Shusterman, and we'll be back next week to continue and hopefully finish up the book next week. So yeah, I'm going to head out. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful weekend.